Hello. God, I love that intro. It never gets old, does it? Hello, guys, ladies, gentlemen, everyone watching across the world. Tonight we have an interesting and some could say controversial topic to talk about tonight. Tonight we're talking about all things electric motorcycles, e-bikes, motorcycles, I don't know, there's so many different terminologies and everything for it. And yes, we've got a lot of different things, a lot of questions, a lot of theories, a lot of discussions, which we're going to go through in some detail. And we've also got a special guest with us, which I will bring in very, very shortly. Give you a bit of background, I suppose. I'm a petrol head. I love, as you can see behind me, I love all things motorcycles, petrol motorcycles, the internal combustion engine. I love all things that are normal motorcycles. However, this devil on my shoulders kind of crept up over the last few years, months, and weeks as it's kind of got closer that electric motorcycles seem to be the next big thing. We've all seen and heard of the Teslas, the electric cars, the hybrid vehicles, all that sort of thing that's been on the roads. And electric motorcycles is the next big jump, we think, for the motorcycle industry. So what I wanted to do was to kind of get a little bit more into it and kind of get a bit more of an understanding of what it's like and have a go with it. And we've already got some people joining in. Hello, Nigel. Great to see you, my friend. Hope you're well. Pav, hello, sir. Love that profile photo of you. That is so not you now, but that's fantastic. And Bob, hello, Bob. Nice to see you. So yes, to kind of get a bit of a background and a bit of information why we're doing this particular topic this evening, I have been given the opportunity to have a go on some electric bikes, and the one I'm currently testing, reviewing, and trying to get a grip onto is the Maving motorcycle. I will go into a bit more detail with that shortly, but I think without further ado, it is time to bring our guest in, because I'd love to introduce you to John, who you're going to see very shortly, and he's going to tell you a bit about himself and his involvement with motorcycles. So without further ado, let's bring him in. John, good evening, sir.
Good evening, James, and good evening.
How are you, mate?
Everybody. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing all right, thanks. Yeah, just getting over a cold, but it's that time of year, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah, that's all good fun. Right. So, John, for anyone who doesn't know about you, please say a little bit about yourself. I can see you've got a YouTube channel on there as well. And why are you here? Why have I invited you to join us on electric motorcycles today?
Well, we've met.
Yes,
you've done my bike in the past, so
very true.
Yeah. So my bikes, in fact. So let's get that out of the way first of all. I am not anti-petrol bikes. I still have a petrol motorbike, and I still use it occasionally. And at the moment, I would hand on heart say there isn't an electric bike that will do exactly what that will do. So
no, absolutely.
I'll put that out there right from the get-go. Having said that, most of my miles are now electric. So in terms of my background, a little bit of background, I've been biking since I was 52 now, and I'm 30. I started relatively late to biking.
Okay.
More than most people. Actually, when I first than up, which is the wrong way to do it. But
yeah, absolutely, a bit backwards, but interesting. I'm going out on the bike. Bye.
Yeah, get out of the nappies. No, it's so started biking then. I've always enjoyed riding, more so touring. I don't really follow racing at all. And so that it's more the road stuff I enjoy. And eventually I ended up doing bike safe, as a lot of people do, and got a taste for that. Joined Coventry Warwickshire Advanced Motorcyclists back in 2013, 2014-ish.
Okay, yeah.
Enjoyed that, became an observer with them.
Absolutely.
Went on, did the Masters, requalified as a national observer. So that's what I do a lot in terms of biking. Regular biking is observing. And in 2016, having owned an electric car since so let's wind back a bit. 2014, we sold our final internal combustion engine car, and we bought a Nissan Leaf. So 2014. So
Go
it's
on, very
relatively
quickly
early
on that.
days.
What made you go from normal car to electric? What made you go for that? What was your thought behind it?
I was interested in the tech. It wasn't in it. So it wasn't an environmental thing for me. It was an interest in the tech and a natural progress to the next available tech. It was more from that interest point of view. Most of my miles are on two wheels. I've worked from home for years, so I'm not commuting anymore. So the car was the only sort of regular journeys we needed to do in the car. Really, were up to in-laws in northeast Lincolnshire, which is just over 100 miles. So Nissan Leaf was going to tick that box. But having said that, we went down to Cornwall with it. We went on holiday with it. At that time, 2014, 2015, you're talking about a time when there was one rapid charger in the whole of Norfolk.
Wow.
A lot better covered in rapid chargers. But that kind of made it possible. And at the time, it wasn't a motivation for me, but at the time, charging was free. And actually, I was against it because I thought, well, how are you going to fund the infrastructure if you don't bring in some money, right?
Very true. Very true.
So it was with the car, 2016. Like I said, I'm an observer now, and I thought, do you know what would be great for this? Would be an electric motorbike. And I've been looking at them, and the early zeros, I thought they're not quite there yet. And then 2016, I had a look at the Zero DSR, took one out for a ride, and really liked it. And this is absolutely perfect for doing check rides as an observer because it's whoppers to run, and that's all there is to it. I just fell in love with it as soon as I rode it. I went, yeah, I've got to get one of these.
So the one you had when you first got that one, that was very early on in the electric motorcycle days, wasn't it? It was not the earliest, obviously, but it was certainly since, or if you compare then to where we are now, it's that's actually very early technology if you think about it.
It is relatively, especially with the bikes. Realistically, motorbikes are a bit behind cars in terms of EV development, and that's understandable because a lot of motorcyclists hate the idea of electric bikes anyway. I understand that. So there's not that demand. There's obviously fewer bikers anyway than there are car drivers. But they were around for a few years before that. I think they were around about 2010, just before they started. But the early
Yamaha that had the first one. They had that three-wheeler, didn't they?
Oh, you might be right. I don't know.
I'm sure there was one that kind of everyone went, "Hey, that's what electric or hybrid or no? I think it was electric."
Well, Zero came in and then they actually left the market again in the UK because they weren't selling. That was about, I think that was 2014-ish. A street bike called Street Bike in Helsona sold a handful, and they looked after their customers, which was good. And then they came back into the market, better prepared, sort of 2016, end of 2015, maybe, not sure. And that's, like I say, when I jumped on that bike. And
then you just did small journeys, didn't you? You didn't do any long distance journeys at all on that because
I couldn't. Yeah. So the thing about that bike was at the time you could buy it with the stock bike came with it's like a kettle lead, like an IEC lead is what it's called apparently. Like a computer lead. So and that was 9 hours to charge, which is fine. Okay, so the bike will do about, let's say, realistically 85 to 100 miles mixed roads, which, like I say, was fine for observing. And I'd get home and plug it in, and it would charge, and it's not an issue.
Yeah, just leave it charge overnight or whatever you need to do. It's brilliant.
Yeah, but the other option that was available was you could get a thing called a charge tank. So where the petrol tank is on a traditional bike, when you bought the stock bike, there was a storage place there because obviously it wasn't of any use as a tank. So you could use that as a storage place, or you could have this charge tank fitted. And at the time, it would give you an extra 2.5 kilowatts charging rate. There was 1.3 on board. So just to put this in hours terms, you're talking about, with the charge tank, you're talking about bringing the charge time down to about half, maybe. Okay,
So
so
that's
four
a
and a
hell of a
half.
difference.
It is, but it's not for £3,000. It was nearly £3,000 at the time, and I just went, no, I can't justify 3,000 quid for that difference, so I didn't do it. Subsequently, I found out that nobody had done Land's End to John O'Groats on an electric motorcycle, and so I thought, I had a chat with my wife and said, nobody's done that. She said, well, why don't you do it? I said, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. Spoke to my older brother, lived in Shetland at the time, and told him I was going to do it. And he said, oh, you giving up at John O'Groats, are you? I said, all right, I'll come up to Shetland then. We'll do the true north. And so that was a bit of planning was involved in that, because obviously I couldn't do 9-hour stops. That's ridiculous.
No.
There was another option, which was two external. You could take external like charge bricks. So I had a top box with those in.
Let me get that photo, because for anyone watching, John, you did it. You did it, didn't you? It was absolutely.
There
you go.
There we go. Yeah. So, cut a long story short, I did it. It took me. It wasn't easy. It took 4 days to get from Land's End to John O'Groats, because the simple reality was it was 3 hours to charge every time. So, and I was doing about 85 miles a stint, then 3 hours to charge, 85 miles, 3 hours. So I did the first 2 days. I did 3 stints with 2 charge breaks, and then the last 2 days I wanted to enjoy Scotland, so I just did two hops with 1 charge in the middle of the day. I could have crammed it into 3 days, but I wasn't after setting a time record, because I knew it would be smashed ultimately. So there was no point.
No, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Because ultimately, electric bikes, they are not designed to be breaking speed records or things like that. They are initially designed, and the initial idea with it behind it was a commuter, short distance rider, something to enjoy the basics of motorcycling again. So the fact that you've been able to do it and still do it within 3 days, that's still quite impressive. I'm not being funny. That's still, that's still very good.
Yeah, do you know what? It was really enjoyable. One of the best things about it was the stops and talking to people, and you rediscover the joys of traveling.
That's it.
We're always in a hurry to do things, and you suddenly, when you're forced to stop for 3 hours. I got chatting to this pub on the going up on the northeast coast, Scotland, a place called Pandora. There was the pub on the side there, and there were a couple of real characters in there. The landlord and landlady apologized at the end. So sorry they chewed your ear off. But I said, do you know, it was really entertaining. It's just chatting with a couple of locals, and it made the journey, meeting the people. So the stops were, if I'd just stayed on the road and ridden, I would have missed out on all that. And I did, spoiler alert, I did the journey again last year on my current bike, which is the Energica Eva Rebelle.
There we go. Let me get that one up for you. There it is.
So there we go. And the other guy there is James Coates, who is part of Cleveley EVs. He's actually a mobile EV engineer, travels all over the country.
Nice.
And he does, he travels around actually in an MG5, fully electric. So he's done thousands and thousands of miles. That's
there you go. So a full EV ambassador there.
Yeah,
Okay, so this will be interesting. So compared to the Zero, which was the first one you had, that was when? Sorry, back in
2016. I got that.
2016, and this was done last year.
Last June. Last year.
So that jump in technology, that advancements in technology, the changes in things. How different was it with this now?
So that meant the stops were about 40 minutes to an hour, depending if we got a drink or something. Sometimes usually the bikes were finished before we were ready. They were ready to go by the time we were ready to go. We had to do 10 stops on the way up, and it took us 29 and a half hours, including the stops. So we set off at just after 3 a.m. from Land's End, got to John O'Groats in time for a cooked breakfast the next morning.
Oh, spot on. And was this motorways? Was this country lanes? What sort of riding was it?
It was mostly A roads. We did when we got to the northwest. We, rather than ride through all the urban areas around, Burnley and all of that neck of the woods, I did that in 2016. You end up going through town after town after town. Instead of doing that, we just jumped on a motorway and stayed on it to bypass Lancaster. Really, once we got north of Lancaster, we got back on the A6 and took the pretty roads up rather than stay on motorways. Yeah. So
I love it.
that bike is, that's the one that you've got on there now. Is the bike I've got. It's actually the RS version of the bike I've got now. So that one there's slightly sportier than mine.
Okay.
Insofar as that will do 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. Mine is a sluggish 2.8.
Sluggish. That's still ridiculous, isn't it?
It's a lovely bike. It really is. And that trip there was, I borrowed the bike just to see. I went, right, okay, I want to see what this will really do. So I rode from Lowestoft to Land's End. So I went, okay, furthest point east to southwest and back again. Let's see what it'll do. And I finished it and just went, okay, yeah, I've got to find a way of affording this bike. So
that was it, just by riding it and putting it through its paces.
Yeah.
I mean, did you want to like it, or were you thinking, no, I'm not going to like it? Because you still had the 0 at this point.
I did, yeah. Do you know what? I got back and I was asked when I got back to English Electric in Norfolk, that's sort of Norfolk, Suffolk, DIS. They're in. I got back there. And I was chatting with them, and they said, "How did it go, John?" And I said, "Unfortunately, it went really well." That's honestly how I felt, because I thought I kind of wanted it not to work out, because I didn't want to think, "Oh, I've got to find a way of affording this," but it just did. It wasn't totally smooth. I had issues, but they were down to charge points rather than. Actually, it might have been 50-50 with the bike. In that case, they did a firmware update that might be a previous firmware might have caused some issues. I'm not 100% on that, but in any event, I had some issues charging, which, if you're interested in, you can be bored by in the YouTube video, company YouTube video. But
no, I will recommend, if anyone is interested in John and his adventures, definitely check out his YouTube channel. You can see it just under his name there. Head over to his channel. Please give him a little like and subscribe. It does help our channels, but also, to be fair, the content is really good. It is really good. No, it is, and it's another reason I wanted to get you in, because you are a bit of an ambassador, and the great thing is you're not one of these people that will throw it down people's faces, but you're very happy to talk about it because it interests you. The technology is fantastic, and what we're probably talking about in a second is we think it's the way that technology is going to go, especially with the way that they're trying to phase out combustion engines and things, which is it's an interesting one. But yeah. Right, so anybody watching, please feel free to pop any comments, questions, or anything in the chat as we go along. I'm sure both myself and John will be more than happy to answer any questions we've got. Any opinions you've got as well. There's no such thing as right or wrong here. It is all about opinions. It is still very new technology, so even the big brands, I'm sure they would love to hear about some of the opinions as well, and take it from there. What I will start with, I say start, we've already started, but what I'm thinking we can do is start with, what do we know about electric motorcycles as far as what different surveys and things are showing us? So this was an interesting one. We very briefly discussed this the other day, didn't we, John? 46% of riders would like to own an electric motorbike or scooter/moped, and a further 3.6% already own one. Now, that is a lot more than I thought.
Me too.
That means we've got a lot of closet electric likers here, which is interesting. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest thing I would say to anyone, even considering or even just thinking about electric motorbikes, is go and have a rider one, because it is so different to what normal motorcycling is. I wouldn't even, although it's still motorcycling, it's almost a massive tangent, because it's not the same. Now, obviously, you still got your petrol bike, or have you not got rid of it?
I've still got it. Yeah,
you still got it. Yeah. So you ride in both, and you come off one and then go to another one. It's very interesting. Now, I am currently riding the Maving. So I have got. Let me just put that on screen for a second. For anyone that hasn't seen, this is the one that I'm currently test riding at the moment. This is the Maving RM1. Now, as far as motorcycles go, in comparison to what I've got as my road bike and things like that. This is not a comparison to what I've got currently. This is a very different machine. It is initially designed for primarily London, which is where they wanted the bike to be, as a commuter. A bike to get you from A to B and make things as easy as possible. Now, as far as motorcycles, electric motorcycles go, I think that is a very, very good looking bike. It does break the mold of what some electric bikes would like to look like. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. And when I first rode it, I've got to talk about this because it was crazy. You sat on it and you think, well, it's just like a push bike. It's the same sort of dimensions. It's not really much bigger. The weight of it, no, there's not much weight to it. You just think, well, okay, it's not going to be anything special. You twist the throttle and it's just this surge of electricity. It's such a weird feeling and no noise. Now, the first thing a lot of petrol heads will say, and I'm sure that I'll get some comments on it in a second, is no noise. There's no soul. It's not a motorcycle. There's no thrill involved. I'm thinking, no. If you're looking for something with thrill, then there's other electric bikes which you can go for. But realistically, you're not really ready for electric motorcycles if that's what you're looking for. What this did for me, and I'll ask you the same question, what your first experience on it as well, on electric motorcycle, is what this did for me is it took away all the external distractions I thought of it. It was just you, the motorbike, you twist the throttle, there's no noise, which is almost like losing a sense. But then every other sense was heightened when I was riding it. So suddenly I'm not hearing anything, so I could see better. Silly thing, when you're in the car and you park and you turn the radio down so you can see better. Same sort of concept. You turn the engine noise off, and it's so lovely. You can hear traffic before you get to a junction. You can hear the birds tweeting. It's mad how it is, and it made it so much more enjoyable for me to be on a motorbike. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to jump away from petrol bikes straight to electric, but I was very surprised in a pleasant way how nice it was to ride the first time I experienced it. What was your time like, John?
Yeah, I'd kind of echo that, really. I think it was the first thing was the unreal sense of power on it, and the fact that, okay, people think changing gear is some kind of superhuman skill, apparently, but I didn't. I didn't miss the gears. There's a flip side to that, which I'll come on to.
Yep.
But I mean, the fact of the matter is, you don't need gears because you've got that flat curve all the way up. You're always in the right gear, effectively. You've always got that response. You've always got a responsive throttle when you need it. You can roll it on and roll it off, and the bike will behave as though you're in the perfect gear every time. The flip side to that, which you're going to say, is is slow riding. So you've lost the ability to feather a clutch. So it means you're all throttle and rear brake with when you're doing slow riding. That's the one thing I found I had to get on a car park and do what everyone should do anyway, and do some slow riding practice. But there's a slightly different technique, like I say, losing the clutch.
Yes,
so that was the first impression, but not a big deal. And the other thing was the first time I pulled up in the countryside, as you just touched on, and came to a stop at a junction. I had to stop, and there was no noise other than birds twittering.
It's mad, isn't it?
And it was incredible. And then over time, you realise actually that's a lot of people talk about loud pipes save lives, but so does being able to hear what's going on around you. And one of the benefits you get is you can actually hear vehicles before you see them on certain junctions. So you actually gain 100%. In that respect, safety wise. But the overriding impression was it was just an effortless, enjoyable experience. You've still got all of the forces you get riding a petrol bike without having your bottom vibrated. Now, I'm not going to judge anyone.
Some people like that sort of thing.
Some people like that. I didn't miss that aspect of it. I get that some people do, and I'm not saying anything against that at all. It's everyone rides bikes for different reasons. I'm not a mechanically minded person. I can do oil changes and stuff, but I wouldn't want to take a bike apart. I'm not one of those people. I want to be out on the road doing roadcraft. That's what I get out of biking. It's not the maintenance side of it. But I understand other people do. In the same way, some people like racing, other people aren't interested. It's
absolutely.
horses for courses.
Very much so. Very much so. And what we'll come on to in a second is although that is one type of bike which we've a couple of bikes we've very briefly discussed, there is now certainly starting to be released this type of electric bikes which are going to appeal to those sort of people who want the speed, the adrenaline, the acceleration, that sort of thing. And there's some really exciting changes, definitely, in motorsport as well. We've got a couple of comments. I'm just going to bring some of these up. So, Robbie Moto, good evening, sir. Great to have you on board tonight. Having spent many hours and thousands of miles testing electric cars, I wouldn't mind testing an electric bike. I can certainly relate to charging issues. This seems to be a common thing with electric and charging in general, relating to the charge. Yeah, it is the machines and maybe the software or firmware, that connection, rather than the actual bikes or cars themselves. So that's interesting. So how does it work with charging machines? Is it just like going to a public, socket on the wall, basically, or are these governed by individual things?
Right. So it depends on the bike. First of all, I like that comment. That was good and honest. And it's important to be honest on all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The charging problems are becoming less of an issue now insofar as there are a lot more charge points on the road. They're just trying to play catch up now, because we're all seeing more and more vehicles with the green flash on the registration plate.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're seeing more and more EVs around, and they have to keep up. And there's a lucrative market potentially there for charging networks. Yep. But to answer your question, with the Zeros, they all use AC charging. Okay. So the reality there is that they're restricted, they're limited in terms of how much power they can put in the bike. So typically from a single AC point, you'll get 6 kilowatts. The kind of charge point you have at home that people have on a garage wall or outside, in fact, they're generally 6 kilowatts. That's what a single phase typical UK household will do. 6 kilowatts. If you're lucky enough to have 3-phase, then you can 3 times that. But most vehicles won't take that in terms of AC charging. Most vehicles will stop at 7 kilowatts is kind of the limit from domestic.
So by Zero and other companies who choose to have AC as a charging method, that is limiting the speed that they can recharge.
Correct. Yeah. Now what they do is they can, in the case of Zero, on the more recent bikes, they put on they have that natively now on the bike, and then you can have a second, like a charge tank, an additional optional extra, so you can have effectively two going in.
Right.
So you can double your charge rate in that respect, and then you bringing it down to round about the hour level, the hour time wise, which is getting
from
close.
Empty to full.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Which is almost at the. So the Energica, I was just going to say, the Energica bike, the one I've got now, is DC charging, which is like rapid charging on the cars. So the difference there is you are talking. It's the how long is a piece of string thing. You don't generally turn up with 0 miles on the.
You're very lucky.
If you're sensible, I tend to try and get somewhere with I aim to have about 20 miles ish left on the guessometer, as we call it. If I get somewhere 20 miles ish left, I know that if there's a fault with the charge point, I can find somewhere else. And I've never, since 2014, I've never run out on the side of the road.
You've said this now. If you ever do, I want to know.
I'll have to put my hands up. Yeah. So it's just a case of you just got to keep an eye on it. But yeah, so the only bikes that will rapid charge, like most cars now, are the Harley Livewire and the Energica Evo Rebelle. There was. It turns out, sadly, it was vaporware, but there was they did make it, the Lightning LS218, which achieved a speed record of 218 miles per hour. It has been made, but they appear to have issues with delivering them. So that was the other rapid charging bike that I'm aware of. Right, as in that you could potentially go out and buy.
Open to the public, if you like.
Yeah. So realistically, the Energica, and like I say, the Livewire, they're really the only two that will rapid charge. So you're talking 40-minute stops, typically. 30, 40 minutes. Well, you have a coffee at McDonald's or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that
And
is, but if you went to if you had a long journey in the car, for example, or even a normal motorbike, realistically, you're stopping for 30, 40 minutes anyway. You usually give yourself an hour or so, unless you're in an absolute rush. But you give yourself an hour to have some food, a snack, a drink. Well, it's done. It's charged, and you're not having to stand there at the petrol pump like a muppet going. You just plug it in, walk away.
Yeah, so we went down in August. The whole family, 5 of us, we went down to Italy, and we went down in our MG4. We've got an MG4 electric car, and my daughter put it brilliantly. My eldest daughter, she said, "You know what? When you wanted to stop to charge, I was ready to get out and have a break." And it was like, it just worked fine. It was averaging about a couple of hours between stops,
which is about right, isn't it?
2.5 hours, yeah. So, it works fine with a bike. Obviously, the range isn't quite. Bikes aren't going to have quite the same range. The bike I've got now is about, I'm going to say, between 120, 140 miles to a charge.
Okay. Is that realistic as well?
Mixed roads. Yeah, that's realistic.
Yeah.
And A roads rather than all town riding. You knock it up to. Well, I'll give you an example. Last year, I did a group ride, and I was somewhere towards the back of the group, and we'd done 100 miles, and I still had 50% charge left, just because it was a bit more twisty roads, but consequently slightly lower speeds. It just made it. It just eked out the range quite a bit.
That's interesting to know, and it's nice to see a realistic sort of feedback.
I just made a good point. Yeah,
go on.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, so you basically pay for your speed. So DC charging is quite a bit more expensive. So, and at the moment, there's one particular company which unfortunately are really good and reliable, the Instavolt, and they're quite common at McDonald's. They've put up their prices extortionately to 85 pence a kilowatt hour now, which when you compare that with domestic charge, so for me it's 9 pence overnight between midnight and 4:30. So 9 times the price, 900%, when energy prices have come down. So there's quite a few EV drivers and riders going, well, they're just going to avoid them. It's that is the beauty of competition, of course, because there are other networks. You can go, well, okay, we'll go somewhere else. But absolutely right, correct comment.
No. Thank you, Robbie, for dropping that in. We've got a few more comments. Let's bring some of them up. We've got one from Nigel. I drive a HP EV. Now, is that the hybrid basically, isn't it? Hybrid plug-in electric vehicle. I've ridden electric bikes, however, I think they're not there yet. Interesting. I would prefer hydrogen. Oh, hydrogen! I know you're dying to talk about that in a second. Due to the higher power density and rapid refilling. Right, hold that thought, Nigel. We're going to come to that in a minute. But interesting, electric bikes aren't there yet. What are you looking for in an electric bike? Is it range? Is it how quickly they charge? What would make it more there for you? I'll be interested to know, Nigel. Let us know. Another one here from Martin. Martin, thank you very much for joining in, buddy. I've driven EVs for 3 years. My job is designing electric cars. Interesting. Feel free to let us know who it is if you want to. My passion is bikes. Very interesting to hear this conversation. And then he said, do any electric bikes have adjustable regen? I'm guessing this is the braking and the when you slow down and that sort of thing. Is that what he's talking about?
It is, yeah. It's a good question, Martin. Yes, they do, is the simple answer. In fact, the Zero DSR I had was really nicely configured in that respect, because it had 2 different ways of applying regen. One was when you roll off the throttle, you could set the regen amount for when you roll off the throttle, and you also had a separate one for the brake lever. So you could set it so that there was very little regen when you rolled off the throttle if you wanted to keep momentum. But if you wanted to apply a bit of regen, you could just pull in the brake lever and have that.
Effectively, it feels like engine braking. It would feel like that.
Exactly that, James. Yeah, before it started to hit the physical brakes. And that's actually, while we're talking about that, that's a potential downside of EVs is rusty brakes, because they don't get used enough. it's quite a common thing that people get rust on them because they're not. So general advice is slam your foot down every week or so and just give them a bit of a clean.
There you go. Top tip, ladies and gents. There you go. You heard it from there. Right, BK, which is Mr. Bill Kinsley. How are you, buddy? I can see electric taking off in the off-road world, which I believe it already has started to. When it comes down to practice days and training, as far as watching the racing, not convinced myself, but can definitely see the benefits as well. It's relatively new, when it comes to the racing side of things. Although, again, there's been some really, really exciting changes with the Moto E. So there's Moto GP, Moto 1, Moto 2, etc. And Moto E, Moto Electric. They've done a massive change recently where was it Energica that did
They
the
were
initially?
yeah.
Go on.
So that's their pedigree, James. Basically,
Mm.
Energica started off on the racing track, and then their idea was to hone the bikes technology on the racing track, and then roll that out to road bikes. So yeah, you're exactly right, James. Sorry, I know where you were going to go with this. I think.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna drop it in a second.
Yeah.
And to be fair, they were very successful. I mean, that
Yeah.
was amazing how they did it. And then there was a brand which we'll talk about now, which they decided, hang on, you've got an electric bike and you've now brought that to the road. Well, we do road bikes. Let's bring an electric bike to the road. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen it before, this blew me away when I saw it. This is the Moto E Ducati V21L. This was the prototype which they launched, which was absolutely phenomenal. It looks like a MotoGP bike, isn't it? It looks absolutely incredible. Physically, size is just immense, but under that fairing, it's all battery. I mean, you can pretty much, where the fairing is, that is all a huge battery unit. You plug it in behind the seat, and it's got the same technology, the same wheelie control, the same advancements as a MotoGP bike. So wheelie control, traction control, cornering, ABS, everything, but no noise. Obviously, you got the whine of the motor, if you like, but no MotoGP noise. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, there you go. They can see it being charged in the pits there. The technology that they've got is incredible. And now Ducati have actually, got such a grip on this. They've now pretty much sponsored the entire of the Moto E category. So is it just Ducati bikes that's in that now? Is it?
I think they've taken that over from Energica. It's all cordial, as I understand it. Energica have got other irons in the fire now, and I think they want to concentrate more on getting bikes out to mass market. They've kind of done all their proving, if you like.
Yes, definitely.
They are still racing. They won a race against. I think they got a podium position the other week. Sorry, excuse me, I don't follow bike racing.
No, it's okay.
Really.
That's
so
okay.
They did get a podium because they made a bit of a song and dance about it. They got second place, I think, in a race the other week.
Wow.
So they were quite pleased with that. But it's a valid point. I think the thing about like track racing is it does need a hell of a lot of power, and let's face it, hydrocarbons. You can't beat that energy density in terms of putting fuel in a tank. It's incredible, and the amount of power that's used just to move a bike that fast, as fast as you need it to go, it's going to be quite substantial. So it's just something like the TT. I know they tried the TT Zero. It was
John McGuinness was involved in that as well, wasn't he? He was quite good with that.
Yeah, it is a tough ask to. It's just really about the battery capacity. Now that's going to get better. It will get better because,
of course,
batteries are a horizontal market. They're constantly improving. Everyone wants better batteries in laptops and phones, so everyone's got an interest in getting batteries better and better and better. And there's lots of new battery chemistries emerging. So it will get better. It's as simple as that.
No, 100%. I mean, as you say, technology is always improving. So I'm excited to see how it goes. And for anyone interested in this particular bike, the Ducati, it hit 275 kilometers per hour, so 171 miles per hour. That is an electric bike, pure electric, no hybrid, no nothing. It's got 140 newton meters of torque delivered. And that's not just like peak torque. That is, you twist the throttle, you've got that torque the entire way through the range. It is incredible. Acceleration wise, it's at the moment, I believe it's pretty much the quickest accelerating electric motorbike that out there, I believe, with all the technology and everything in there. But yeah, that was amazing to kind of see that. We've got a few more comments. Let me just quickly bring them up. So we've got so Nigel, we asked him a minute ago what would bring the bikes into more what he would be interested in. He said last Saturday So Nigel has got a BMW K1600 tour bike, beautiful bike. Last Saturday he went to the South Coast in 2 hours and 10 minutes. It was back by 2:30, which realistically on electric bike it's not feasible because of the recharging. So Nigel, I'm guessing what you're saying there, matey, is the recharge time, and that's what's slowing it down. So you want to be able to nip out. You went to the coast, for God's sake. This is not you wouldn't do that on a normal motorbike anyway. You've got a beautiful bike that is purpose designed for that sort of thing. So that's a big ask for electric motorcycles at the moment, especially it's relatively new, and they're starting now to come out with the adventure style bikes, the off-road bikes, and the longer distance ones. But okay, so if that's the only stopping point, then I think you're going to be in for a treat, Nigel, because I think in the future that's where it's going to go.
You need to spend longer on the beach, Nigel.
Yeah. Yes, Nigel. Let's spend longer on the beach.
Stop getting back by 2:30. Good grief, man.
Right, we've also got a few more. Martin's back again. So, for reference, my 90 kilowatts per hour car charge at 100 kilowatts, so 45 minutes, 10 to 90%. Most people's bladders last less than the full charge. Completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah.
And again, that's only going to go more in the bike's favour as well as it improves.
That's quite a beefy car at 90 kilo. Which car is that, Martin? Just interested. So a friend of mine's got the Ioniq 5, and that's a stonkingly fast charge on that. In fact, he brought it down to Rugby. I'm sure a lot of you know Rugby Services got a lot of rapid charge points, and he came down from. I grew up in Yorkshire. He came down from Yorkshire, and he we went in and got a coffee. By the time we came back, it had finished charging. We literally picked the coffee up, came back, it was done. So like,
that's ridiculous.
Insane. Couldn't even drink the coffee.
See, that's interesting. And again, if that's the way it's going to go, I mean, that is at the moment that's a bit of a one-off, I'm guessing, because of
it's an expensive car. Yeah, it's an expensive car. A car that charges at those kind of rates is you're going to be paying quite a bit of money for. Yeah, that is the reality.
Okay. Mr. Tricky, David Tricky, we've got you on board. Thank you very much for joining in, matey. The constant recharging in terms of length of time to recharge is not an option for a day ride. We currently stop for fuel on average for about 15 minutes before doing 100 miles. So yes, you're absolutely right. If you're looking at having that progressive sort of ride, then no, it's not there yet. Again, like we've just spoke about there, if that very, very quick charging comes into it, then maybe in the future, 15, 20 minutes, if you're looking at doing that, for 100 miles, which the electric bikes now are becoming more and more range suitable. There's a couple of electric bikes we'll talk about in a minute. They've got over 200-mile range, which is fantastic.
What I'd say about that is, so I mentioned earlier I do like touring, and I've been down I've done now like the Cornish Devon coast on the electric. I've done the Snowdonia 360 did last year. Nice. And that was it was a weekend, so I left Friday evening, left home here. I'm in Nuneaton, Warwickshire. Went over to the Welsh coast Friday evening, stopped once on the way, just charged and got a coffee. The Saturday morning set off, and we didn't charge until sometime early mid-afternoon, maybe. Was the only charge I needed of the day. Riding all the way around the west coast of Wales, up right the way up to Holyhead ultimately, and then we stayed overnight in Anglesey, and that was a full day's ride with one stop. So
see, that's interesting.
It was evening by the time we got there, so it was a full day's ride with one stop. That's all I'd say. Now, if we've been doing motorways all day, it'd be a different story. Granted.
Of course, but you're averaging 70 mile an hour, as opposed to enjoying the roads that. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I love the twisty roads where you're not doing 100 mile an hour. You're doing 40 mile an hour, and you're enjoying the roads, enjoying the curves, the mountain roads, and that's where, if anything, that's where these bikes seem to really come into their own.
So I was just going to say I wasn't compromising. I rode it exactly as I rode a petrol bike, and we had to stop once we'd left. So it was, and like I say, full day's ride. So the constant recharging depends on what you're doing. It really does. If you do something silly like Lance and John Groats, it's constant recharging. Yeah. But
But
if that's
it's
your thing.
horses for courses. If you're doing that, you
Yeah.
wouldn't buy, you wouldn't go out and buy a 125 scooter, for example. You'd go and buy like Nigel's got. You'd buy a touring machine.
Yeah.
At the moment, the electric motorcycle industry is getting there, but it's not. You wouldn't say that is purpose built for the touring. So
No.
you wouldn't look at it. So further to what Mr. Tricky just said here, we've got so that comment about the stopping for 15 minutes for another 100 miles. Incorporate the lack of charging facilities really puts me off electric bikes. Interesting, because you'd be surprised how many places, normal petrol stations, McDonald's, like you said, supermarket car parks, they're popping up. And they're not wow, they're not lit up like Las Vegas, they're not in your face. They're there. And once you recognize a particular logo, Instavolt, I think you said, was one of them.
Yeah.
You'll see them everywhere, and it's incredible. Even on the side of the road, like most universities or hospitals, they've got electric charge points there. They're just like a little bollard by the side of the road, and you just plug it in.
I don't worry about going anywhere now. I was up in Scotland about 3 weeks ago visiting my brother. No issues charging all the way up. Never waited. It was really straightforward. It's really not an issue anymore. If you're in doubt, I suggest if you look at zapmap.com, they show all the charge points, and you can filter by rapid charge points. You get an idea of how many rapid charge points, just rapid charge points there are around, let alone the fast ones, which are the 6 kilowatt equivalent to domestic charging. So coming back and touching back on the charging rates again a little bit.
Yes.
So AC charging, some people call it destination charging as well. It's kind of quite suitable if you go to a car park. If you're going out shopping, or you're going to a cinema or something like that, or you're going to see a show or whatever, you might pull up in a car park. You'll find a lot of car parks have got charge points now, and they're generally AC charge points, so they're slower than the rapid ones. They're like I said, 7 kilowatts typically, instead of 50 kilowatts plus that you'd get on a rapid charge point. There's loads of those all over the place. Loads of those kinds of charge points. You'd just you'd have to actually zoom in on the map to see them all. But yeah, Zap Map. If you want an idea of how many there are, I'd say it's at the stage now where there's very few places in the country I'd be a little bit wary about going. Even Cornwall now is really well catered for. That was lacking a bit. The places that were lacking until relatively recently were sort of Norfolk, so East Anglia, basically. Southwest was not great. Wales wasn't great. Wales still isn't great. The Welsh government needs to do something, I think, in some of the more rural areas, but it's enough to get around. Don't get me wrong, it's enough to get around.
You mentioned Wales. That was the third part of Tricky's point he mentioned here. Also, the more sensible you ride, the more miles you get, which isn't always fun on a bike. Understand? Yes. Okay, I get what you're saying. However, this might work in Wales with the new 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Interesting.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. Eh?
No. Maybe that's why Wales
depresses all.
Yeah. But Tricky, very quickly to answer that point there. Yes, the more you are pinning it, like anything, you're using more voltage, you're using more of the battery's capacity, if you like. So yes, the more it will come down. But when was the last time you rode your bike, Tricky, at full throttle? I can guarantee you now, you've probably never used more than, on average, 70% of it. Because where in the world, I mean, for anyone watching, Tricky rides a beautiful GSX 1000R, GSX R 1000R. So it's a race bike essentially, capable of 200 mile an hour. So yeah, the more sensible you're on any bike, the more you're going to conserve the fuel, of course. But actually, in your opinion, John, riding a bike up hills and things like that, if you just keep a constant throttle, your torque is staying the same. So are you using more load because of the incline, or how does that work?
Yeah, in theory you are. It's using more power as you're going up the hill to maintain. If you're going to maintain the speed. In all honesty, I find that it just cuts through hills like you wouldn't believe. It's like
because the torque.
You get on the hill and it's like, it's effortless. But it will be using more power. Of course, the flip side to that is as you're going down the hill, you get the benefit of regen
braking, absolutely, or regenerative energy. So Tricky, going back to what you said there, yes, it will use more mileage. But then same with anything. The more you use the throttle, the more you're going to use. What we got here? Nigel, he's back again. There's no doubt that for relatively short blasts, electric bikes are very responsive. Absolutely. In fact, in most cases, they actually have to limit the response, because if you had full torque from twisting the throttle, you'd just wheelie and backflip it. So they limit it. I agree the lack of feedback at junctions is strange. It's strange, but it's strangely nice, if I'm being honest with you. And I think it's something I could get very, very used to. But I do think the industry should look at H2 and NH3. I don't know what that is, Nigel, I'm afraid.
Well, hydrogen and what's NH3? I don't know what NH3 is. You're going into chemistry now.
I know that's my periodic table skills are well gone. Is that nitrous or nit? I don't know. I'm sure we'll come to that in a second, because I say we are going to touch on hydrogen in a second. Interesting, Bob. Read a couple of years ago, the mainstream manufacturers are looking at exchanging batteries at fuel stations on a joint venture. Interesting. These would be plug and play, placed in the fuel tank. So this is the other way that people can charge their motorbikes, is rather than having to physically plug a lead in, just like a Bosch power tool, this is the way I describe it. You can take your battery off, exchange it for a different one, and that's another way that people can charge the bike. So the Maving I've got at the moment, it's got 2 battery units. You take them out the bike, you plug them in. You walk into your house, plug it in at home. Great, lovely and easy. You haven't got any cables or anything. So okay, so that's interesting. I didn't actually notice they were looking at exchanging batteries. Have you heard of that before? Then
they've done it. Yeah, so
they have done it.
Yeah, they did it. Tesla did it years ago, actually. They did. There's a demo. There's a video you'll find of it with Elon Musk talking as they demonstrate it. They replaced batteries in 2 cars while they filled up another car with fuel. They just did it like a time trial sort of thing between.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, there's also they also did it in Israel, a place called Better Place. There was a company set up that did it, and it went bust. And also nobody was interested in doing it in the Tesla. So what they concluded was, as much as people think it's the thing they want, the reality is once you get that EV and the battery is yours and it's yours to look after, you don't actually need it. It's a thing people think they need because they're used to driving fuel vehicles and they think they need that fast turnaround. And the reality is, I will charge the car once every 3 weeks.
Is that all?
Yeah, probably once every 3 weeks. Like I said, I work at home, so it's and that's even with longer journeys in between. It's a kind of a common misconception. You need to charge an EV every night. You don't, and you're not always charging from 0 to 100. It's you just normally there's a phrase ABC, always be charging. So if you're somewhere with a charge point, you plug it in. If you want to, otherwise you just do it at home. Off peak, pay the littlest you can. If you've got solar PV, even better. You can trickle charge it when there's spare capacity.
Is this? I saw a comment of yours about renewable energy and that sort of thing. So is that something you've subscribed to yourself? Is it?
Yeah, we've got a charge point which is made in the UK.
Hey,
yeah, it's made up in Grimsby, near the in-laws. So they're actually a really good company, My Energy, UK-based company. It's all manufactured in the UK and they're globally successful. But they make a charge point which it essentially talks to put it easily, it knows how much power is coming in from solar PV. And if it's not being used in the house, it will trickle charge the car if it's plugged in. Wow. So rather than send it back to the grid, it goes, well, you've got some spare, so we'll bung it in the car. So if you leave a car plugged in, it will just you're literally charging from the sun. It's not going to be massive amounts. It obviously depends how many solar panels you've got, but
of course.
But it's every little helps, as they say.
That's interesting. And as you say, it always be charging. I like that. But it just trickles in, and you can almost forget about it. You just leave. That's incredible. I like that.
Just leave it there.
Oh, we've had a conclusion. NH3 ammonia.
There
you go. Yeah. Well done, Nigel. Thank you. Hang on. He's come back with something else. What we got? So Nigel works for a company. He makes bits for 100-kilogram capacity 3-wheeler delivery vehicles. They use replaceable batteries and designed for final leg deliveries in cities. The charge units are like huge like containers.
Mm.
Now, is that the downside with replaceable batteries, that they're going to be physically bigger? Is that just to make it easier to get them in and out the bike?
He's
Or
talking about the actual charging units, the things that
right, sorry.
charge points, I'm guessing. Yeah, they are at. If you look at, I mean, if you go down to rugby services, you see them. They have to be quite beefy. They have to be quite, in terms of grid supply as well. They have to be up to spec. And there's an issue with Leicester Forest East charge points. They haven't worked for I don't know how long.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they supposedly, there's kind of mixed messages. One account is I can't remember which network that is. That particular services might be Welcome Break, not sure, but they want to do
Okay.
their own. They want to do their own charge points. So there's a rumor that they've pushed out the existing provider, but the other side is there isn't. They're claiming there isn't enough grid capacity there, which doesn't really make sense if it's a service.
Is this just going to be? I mean, essentially, electricity comes from a power line, which essentially all comes from the grid. Is this going to be the same sort of thing? Like, so if I change my energy supplier at home from British Gas to EDF or whatever, it's just like signing a contract. Effectively, it's all coming from the same place. It's just who deals with the contracts of it, if you like.
There's quite a lot. There's some interesting videos worth watching, actually, if you're interested on the grid supply side of things, because there's quite a lot involved. I mean, there's a whole management center looking after it all the time. They've got a grid balance all the time. You know, it's a constant job monitoring how much demand is in this part of the country and how much they've got to generate to meet it.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, as much as people may be disparaging about renewables, it's easier to turn on and off wind turbines than it is to fire up a nuclear power station or even gas turbine station.
Very true.
So if things aren't going round in terms of wind turbines, it's quite often because that supply is not wanted at that time. They just turn them off. It's cheaper.
I think this would be a good time to bring in this particular image. So, John, I'll let you go. I'll let you explain this one, because this is obviously there's a bit of a story behind this one.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not a massive. I'm quite an EV evangelist, but I'm not a yogurt weaver, as I put it to you, James. I'm not.
I love that.
I'm not. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not an environmental purist. But I don't like disinformation. I kind of like to get to facts of things. So that cartoon on the left was doing the rounds quite a bit a while ago. The I feel so dirty, I feel so clear, I feel so clean. I didn't put that image together, by the way. Somebody's taken the original.
Yeah, that's just been done. Someone's actually created this for him.
And
if you look at the image on the left, that I feel so dirty, I feel so clean. If you look at it from an outside perspective, you knew nothing about things, and this was just your first glimpse of diesel versus electric, you'd look at that and go, "Oh yeah, you know, that's crap. Why would I get an electric vehicle when it's clearly bad for the environment?"
Yeah, if that's your concern, I mean, people can argue the toss if they want. I invite them to go and look into it themselves seriously, rather than from tabloid papers.
Yes.
There's no doubt that EVs are cleaner over the lifetime. They break even. They are more polluting to start with. There's more of a carbon footprint initially, but they repay that with, I think it's 16,000 miles. They're already broken even with
Is that all?
Yeah,
I generally thought it was more than that, actually.
No, there's a guy in the Netherlands who's done a really, really tight analysis on all this. Really, Volvo came out with a study and he just ripped it to pieces. He's an academic. You can find it, and he's broken it all down. But it's about 16,000 miles is the break-even point. But yeah, fundamentally, that first image just kind of went. You know, if you're talking from well to tailpipe, as they put it, then as you can see, the top image on the left kind of just ignores how the fuel got to the car in the first place. So I just responded with the second image, which involved all the steps getting the fuel to the car. So from the from the oil rig, or you know, it could be piped to land, but then you've got to go through a refinery. Refineries use huge amounts of electricity, massive amounts.
Yes, they do.
So and then you got to transport the fuel from the refinery. Ultimately, you got to pump it between all these things. So all the energy required to do all of that. And I thought, well, if you can play that game, I'll play the silly game as well on the other side and say it's all from renewables.
Yeah. Which is true. I mean, obviously, there is the other thing. We know electricity comes from the grid and stuff. But if
Yeah.
you do opt in for, as you say, the 100% renewable energy tariff, it's coming from the sun or the wind.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. It's okay. It is two extremes of both. But as you say, there's an argument for it. By the way, I'll quickly throw in that Martin's come back to us. He's got a Jaguar I-Pace.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's obviously quite good with technology.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll remove that for a second. Now, Robbie has come back to us and has said the big fossil fuel companies are buying into electric charging. So you'll find charge units a lot, Shell stations, BP, etc. BP bought out ChargeMaster. Yes, they did.
Yes.
That's one of the big. It's not the most common ones I know, because I know it's just BP at the moment, and there's a few other little static sites. But that's interesting.
There's a lot of BP charge points. A lot,
which is nice to see companies like BP and other big ones. They've obviously been aware of it, and they're kind of saying, yeah, do you know what? This is something we're going to help out and become part of. And it goes from being a petrol station to a proper filling station now.
I was wondering when they're going to change. They might change the name at some point to British Power. I just wonder if they'll do that at some point, just to.
That'd be interesting.
Get away from petroleum.
Petroleum.
They can have they can just cover the bases then.
That'd be interesting. I like that.
Yes. Agree, Robbie.
Go on. You tell me why.
I just read his comment. I just went, yeah, absolutely. Ecotricity. So that touched on what we was talking about earlier, when they were free. And the fact of the matter is, Ecotricity, that's Dale Vince, for those who know him. I'm not going to say anymore. Ecotricity's was set up by Dale Vince, and to give him credit, okay, with a lot of subsidies, he set up an electric vehicle rapid charge network nationally, and it was all free. And his rationale was we need to incentivize people to get into electric vehicles, and that was how he considered that was how he thought would be the best way of doing it. I thought it was, as I touched on earlier, I thought it was silly because obviously it's going to be a net cost to them if they're doing it free. And what they did ultimately was they shut down the 24-hour support line. So that wasn't great for some people. If you're stuck somewhere and you had no way of rebooting a machine, it'd be a case of hit the emergency button. That's what a lot of people did, and then pull it out again to get it rebooted. But yeah, they were poorly maintained, exactly like he says, and they did become expensive.
Oh dear, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. When it comes to fuel stations and petrol stations and then charging stations, it's interesting how, you obviously get the big tankers that turn up and they replenish the petrol and the diesel and that sort of thing. There's nothing that needs to be done for electric. It's just on the grid, isn't it? So as long as there's a green light above it, or there's a light on it, you can top up. There's no it's not going to run out of a fuel station.
They do need maintenance. There's obviously some components, I guess, wear and tear, and ultimately it's throwing down quite a bit of power. So they do, and they do go wrong. They do break down periodically. Yeah. You also get people who cut cables or whatever, just try and steal the power, try and steal the metal, or you get. I haven't seen that, but it's happened. I've also seen a picture of a rat infestation where the
right
I think it was rats or mice made a house in one. So they do go wrong. They need maintenance, and if the company's not looking after them, it's not great. Which is where I kind of come down on I'd rather have private networks looking after them than public, because I think the danger with a public one is. I think they found this in Scotland a little bit, where it all made nice pictures and PR with politicians opening charge points, but then it becomes a net cost. So ultimately, they introduce charges ultimately in Scotland as well, and if they become a net cost, then there's no incentive for a government to look after them. If it's a profit-making enterprise, then it's obviously in the best interest of a company to have them working as much as possible. So I don't, coming back to what we were talking about earlier about the cost of rapid charging, I don't mind it too much because I rarely rapid charge. It's rare
Yeah.
that you need to rapid charge. The car will do 180 miles at motorway speeds without batting an eye. So I'm not worried in that respect. The bike, most of my journeys I'll do within the range of, it's like I said, 120, 140 miles range bike. That easily does most of my riding, unless I'm doing touring. So I'm hardly ever using rapid charge points. That's what I wanted to say.
Which goes to say, it's nice to say that someone charged very quickly and needs to be charged very quickly, but in the real world, when you are putting it through its paces on a day-to-day basis, or if you are doing the touring, sorry, there's a conversation going on at the moment between Robbie and Martin. So I think Robbie's trying to work out where it works for, and Martin's saying, "Does your company rhyme with KLR?" Yeah, subtle, real subtle there, Martin.
Didn't even bother changing the second two letters.
No, just yeah. I'll let you two exchange numbers after the show, guys. That's fine. But yeah, sorry, that sidetracked me there. Oh, interesting question. Can you talk about the growing issue of end-of-life lithium batteries? Now, this is out my knowledge here, so I don't know much about this particular subject. What do you know about it, sir?
It's a good question. Yeah. So fundamentally the issue we've got is it is a growing issue because there's going to be quite a few of them certainly coming to their end of the service life in a vehicle. Now, that first of all, it's worth saying that doesn't mean the battery's dead. When it's finished its useful life in a vehicle, it can be repurposed for energy storage. That's the first thing worth saying. And that's something that Nissan were looking at many years ago, and they were surprised at how long their batteries were lasting in the cars because, in fact, the project they had intended to do just to set up a second life with them for energy storage, they couldn't go ahead with because there weren't enough batteries coming through. The batteries are lasting longer than they expected, is what I'm trying to say. So lithium, but we've still got, my eldest daughter drives our original Leaf still. That's
you still got it? Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
Well, she owns it. It's 2013 Leaf. She still drives it. Yeah, those batteries, it's down to 80-odd%, I think.
So it'll only charge up to 80%.
Yeah, and it's not it's an early EV as well.
So it's 10 years old. So
it's 10 years old. It's 10-year-old vehicle, and internal combustion engines lose range over time. A lot of people aren't aware of that actually.
No, of course.
Engines do degrade. But yeah, in terms of recycling and that kind of thing, there hasn't been sufficient numbers of batteries coming on stream to be recycled, but there are. Again, there's quite a few videos on YouTube you'll find of companies that are starting to set up for exactly that reason, because ultimately it's going to be cheaper to get those materials. Yeah, perfect. It's cheaper to get those materials from a battery than it is to go and get them out the ground. So, and the overwhelming majority of a battery can be recycled. It's not going to be put in landfill and stuff. They can recycle most of it. I think 90-odd%. It was from what I last saw. So there's a company in Germany doing it. There's somewhere in the UK is doing it, but it is early days, and until they've got sufficient quantities, it's going to be playing catch up a little bit, because the more there are available, the more economically viable it becomes.
There you go. I've learned something there. I didn't know that, to be fair. That's interesting to know. Very quickly, so Robbie has obviously been chatting away throughout the show. He's actually decided to come and join us, so we're going to drag him in. We're going to drag him in from the green room. Robbie, here you are, sir. Robbie, good evening, sir.
Hello, Robbie.
How you doing?
Very well, matey. Very well. Thanks for joining us, mate. And I think you said in the chat that you may not know too much about it or whatever, but it's fine. It's great to have another person's input, and so we can discuss, what's what. So, out of interest, Robbie, well, first of all, introduce yourself. Who are you? You've got your own YouTube channel as well. Give us a little intro about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a riding KTM 1290 and a 690. I have a little YouTube channel called Robbie Moto. Do all sorts of little tinkering around, some road stuff, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. No, brilliant. And so you actually work with electric vehicles as well?
I do. I work with a multitude of electric, from hybrid, PHEVs, to full electric.
Okay. And have you rode a electric motorcycle yet, out of interest?
I've not. No, actually, funny enough, you ride in the Mavic. I actually spoke with Mavic at the bike show last year.
Yes.
And was going to do a little what do you call it, collaboration, but I never followed it through.
Same boat, Robbie. I did the same.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, John, you've used now Zero and Energica and all that sort of thing, and they are, they're probably say a little bit ahead as far as the excitement factor of it. But something like Mavic, I'd love the fact they're not just a British brand; they're a Coventry, they're a Midlands-based brand.
Yeah.
And they've got the styling right from the get-go. I love the fact that their particular bike, and I'll bring it back up just in case anyone hasn't seen it yet. That's the one we've got at the moment. They've got the styling absolutely bang on. It looks fantastic. I think they've just nailed it with that sort of thing. And considering it was designed initially only for London, I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again, it was only ever designed for London and that commute up to, like, I don't know, 70, 80 miles or whatever on a charge. That was what it was designed for. But because of how good looking it is and because of how popular and how well made it is, I mean, they had some of the designers from Norton and Triumph involved in it as well, which was incredible. People have said, well, I know it's designed as a commuter for London, but I live in Wales. I want one. I'm in Leicester at the moment. I want one. I think they're brilliant. And now they've come out with the next gen, which is being released at the Motorcycle Live show next month, which I'm really excited about. They've now upped the top speed from 45 mile an hour to 65 mile an hour. So that now instantly brings this particular bike, even though it's keeping that same, very good price point, we'll come to pricing in a second, it now brings up to the modern day 125s and gives you that thrill that you may be looking for. But no, Robbie, I would definitely recommend to get in contact with Mavic again, or any other electric brands, and just go and experience it, because it is different. Not good.
It is. It's something that I'd look into. I agree with a lot of what people say about the longevity and the range of those bikes. But it's like when I did the car testing in electric full vehicle, you've got to change your mindset.
Yes.
In respect of when you're having to charge. Most people are sort of like, you can get in your car 400, 500 mile range with petrol or diesel. But then you've got to change your mindset that if you're doing a 200 or 300 mile trip, you're going to have to stop at least once or twice.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you find you start to enjoy traveling. I don't know. Does that make sense to you? Do you find that, Robbie? In a way.
Sorry, when you mentioned about your trip to Scotland and it took you 4 days, and you had to stop and you talk to people. When I was doing that evaluation work on the testing, we had to go around testing different charge units all around the country.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. You parked up, you charged. Other people were coming up, talking to you about, what's this. And the biggest thing was like, how much is it? How long does it take to charge?
Yeah.
They were the two biggest questions that we ever got asked out on the road. But it's a change. It's a change of mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So. I think you're spot on. But I found I started to enjoy traveling a bit more in a different way. It's exactly that, Robbie. It's changing your mindset. It's a slightly different experience, but it's equally enjoyable. You suddenly think, well, did I really need to get back from the beach by 2:30 in the afternoon? Did I really need to do that?
Oh, Nigel, that was a dig there, Nigel.
I'm just annoyed somebody didn't enjoy the beach for the afternoon.
Yeah, if you ever meet Nigel, you'll understand. He does this. He says, "I'm going to Wales for an hour."
That's fair enough.
It's very different.
That's what we said earlier. Horses for courses. If that's
exactly
what you enjoy, fill your boots.
Right, we've got a few more comments coming. I will quickly draw this. So we've got Martin from a company which sounds like KLR. I'm for EVs totally. My concerns with bikes are, I like the way he's done this. He's done it in bullet points for us. So bullet point number 1, I think I'll miss the noise. Okay, my instant reaction is I thought I would. I genuinely thought I would. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing like it when you're on your petrol bike, you give it a rev at the lights, or you hear it, on idle, and it's thumping. You can feel what everyone classes the soul of the bike, and you can feel it, and it's fantastic. It is. But when you're on an electric bike, you have this completely like new experience. Like, yes, okay, you take away that noise, that vibration, you just put that to one side. Then you've got all your other senses have been heightened massively. You are enjoying the view, you're enjoying the sound of everything behind you and in front of you, and it becomes, in my opinion, safer. Which is why a lot of people say don't ride with music on, because then you can hear the road and things. And it's not until I've done this recently that you actually sit back and go, do you know what? Yeah, it makes sense. It really does.
I'm just going to say something about the noise, actually, because
Go on.
I think it depends on the bike. So
Yeah.
the one I've got is not silent. It sounds like a jet. In fact, I don't. Can you play a video at all? Can you play that video, James, at all? I don't want to put you on the spot. If you can't, you can't. But there's
which one?
The one I sent over. There's a ride past I did when I borrowed the bike the first time.
I can't, unfortunately. No, I wanted to.
Fine. It's fine.
But is it on your YouTube?
It will be somewhere. Yeah.
I know I've heard a few of the bike. And when you say
sounds like a jet,
yes, it's crazy actually.
It doesn't. It's not silent, and you can hear it. The first time I heard one, I could hear it a mile away. I was up at the battlefield up at Bosworth, and the guy who did the Lands and John O'Groats trip with me had borrowed one from English Electric, and I was on my Zero, and I could hear him a mile away. I'm not exaggerating. I could hear this high-pitched whine, and then he pulled up. He came up the track up to the visitor centre, and it sounded amazing. It sounded brilliant. So it's not. I guess, and from a riding point of view, let's face it. I mean, I ride with earplugs anyway, so it might be slightly different for other people. But I usually just mainly wind noise, isn't it?
Yeah.
I maybe I haven't ridden a loud enough bike to fully appreciate a really farty engine, but
farty engine.
Yeah, but you know, it's most of it's wind noise as far as I'm concerned. Riding a bike, so there's very little difference actually riding electric, other than I can hear the high pitch of the motor,
which is quite an addictive sound, to be fair.
It's quite spacey.
To be fair, even though my exhaust on my current bike is great and I love it, as soon as I'm on the bike, I put my music on, so I don't even hear the bloody bike. Anyway, I'm hearing some music, so it's like, you know, okay. So the noise side of things, but I think you'd adjust. What do you think about that, Robbie? Would you miss the noise, you reckon? Because you've just put exhaust on yours, haven't you?
I have over the 690. Yeah. The 1290 is quite loud anyway, and the 690 with a wings exhaust on it is pretty thumpy. Yeah. I think it's probably what you just get used to. I think you would miss it at first. The same as when I first drove an electric car. You know, you haven't got with as you mentioned, torque earlier on. It's immediate. There's no build up. There's no sort of supercharger or turbo build up or anything like that. Your power is immediate. So I think it'd be the same thing with an exhaust. You'll get used to not having that note. But on the same grounds, I do know with certain electric cars that there is a built-in noise, especially at low speed.
The artificial kind of hum or whine or whatever it is.
That's it. Yeah, I think there's a legislation that probably came in, I don't know, a year or two ago or something like that.
Yeah, there is.
Speed, they had to emit a hum for obvious reasons, you know, making people aware. But also, you can change the interior noise to a false. So there's possibly something go down that line with a bike as well. You know, not necessarily have, you know, a motorbike noise. You know, you could be riding along and, you know, be able to switch it over to sound like a V12 or a truck or whatever. You know, the possibilities there.
There's aftermarket gimmicks as well, aftermarket toys you can plug into your OBD socket, and you can make it play any engine noise you want.
God's sake.
There's like two little speakers you can mount exhaust pipes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know if that's embarrassing or what, but okay. So I mean, ultimately, the noise, you think you'd miss it. I think the noise mainly is for other people, believe it or not. So if you put an exhaust on your bike, so other people can say, "Oh, that sounds nice." Because when you're physically on the bike, I'm not riding along the bike going, "Oh, that sounds," you know, I'm not looking down, look at the exhaust. I'm you know, riding sort of thing. Second bullet point he's put up. Oh,
doesn't it?
Go on.
Sorry, it makes your bike sound meaty because obviously with Euro 5 laws now, most of cycle silencers are heavily restricted. So you've got a big, like my 1290, big powerful machine with that silencer on. It sounds like a hairdryer when you're blipping the throttle. It's like the look of the machine now. Sorry, the sound now represents the look of the machine.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, Martin's just quickly said, I think I understand why he misses the noise. Because Martin said, I've got a V-twin 900cc bobber with open pipes. The exhaust is the only thing I can hear, or anyone else can hear within 50 miles. Okay.
Martin.
Yeah, so in that case...
just stay off those Alpine roads so we get to ride them still before they ban us all.
Jesus Christ. That's going to be interesting. Okay, so the second point Martin brought up was this one. What happens when, and I don't actually know the answer to this, so this will be interesting. What happens when an electric bike slides down the road? Petrol ones don't catch fire most of the time. Are battery packs adequately protected? Now, I would assume so, as part of the testing, the safety side of things when they create it. I mean, how combustible or how fragile are batteries?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of... This has moved on quite a bit in the last few years. Obviously, they are very, very resilient compared to what a lot of people hear about electric vehicle fires, and quite often it's a cheap Chinese push scooter thing that's been overloaded or something, or somebody's rigged up some kind of thing or charged it through a wrapped cable or something and caused a house fire.
Yeah.
So and then it goes, oh, electric vehicle causes fire. And I sent you an image.
You did. I'm just getting that now.
Okay,
so this comes to a comment that some people have made about electric vehicles. Why don't I want an electric vehicle? Because they're dangerous. They're dangerous. They catch on fire. They're all dangerous. Well, okay. John very kindly did some digging, and he found this particular bit of statistics here. Let me get this up. So this was only done in the last year or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a year or two old. I think it's US insurance stats. So the key thing here, to be fair, you got to do it by the sales, the fires per 100,000 sales figures.
Yeah.
But I mean, a brief look at that, and the stats there tell you everything. They tell you that a petrol diesel vehicle is 61 times, if my maths is right, more likely to burn based on their insurance stats across the whole of the US. They're 61 times more common than electric vehicle fire. The interesting one there's a hybrid, and
yeah.
So
the future.
Well, I personally, I'm not pro hybrid. I mean, whatever. To me, it's get off the fence. If you go electric or stay petrol or diesel. I wouldn't entertain a hybrid, but
interesting.
Some people.
No, it is, and when you look at the figure, okay, hybrid is a bit of a danger because, as we said earlier, you're mixing flammable liquids with this essentially gigantic battery, and they don't really mix very well.
Possibly the cause.
Gas, petrol, diesel, they've been around for years and years and years, and yet they're still one of the biggest causes of car fires. Electric, still very, very new technology, is the smallest percentage. So anyone that's out there says that they are dangerous and whatever, well, anything's dangerous if you want it to be. But statistically speaking, and this is from an insurance company, America, so it's not exactly a small place. This is a huge place in the world. The stats don't lie.
That's the whole biz. That's every electric. That's every insurance. That's the whole.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. It's based on the whole figures. So it's obviously what they use to work out premiums and things. Ultimately, this kind of thing.
There you go.
So yeah, it's quite incredible. And the thing is, people latch on to EV fires. In fact, they misattribute them at the moment. So there was the airport fire at Luton last week, was it, or a couple of weeks ago, which everyone said, oh, it's an electric vehicle. It wasn't an electric vehicle. It was a diesel. You could look it up on the DVLA. It was a diesel vehicle. There was a Bradford fire bus the week before. Bradford fire on a bus, which was a diesel bus again. Again, everyone said, oh, it's an electric bus. It wasn't. So there's a lot of hysteria about it all. But those, like you said, those stats kind of tell you everything, really.
Yeah. No, definitely, and it's crazy. So, that's one we can cross off and say I don't see that as being a negative point. Certainly from current stats and everything. And then, so going very quickly back to our electric bikes, safe if they do get laid down and things. I'd say more so than anything at the moment. There's less, there's no liquid or anything to go wrong, and if you drop your bike, there's going to be the frame, there's going to be the outer paintwork, the crash bars or whatever you put on it that's going to naturally protect the bike anyway, as well as the batteries, which are going to be the centerpiece to the bike. So I'd like to think yes, they are going to be absolutely fine.
You hit the nail on the head earlier when you described the Ducati. It's kind of where the engine is, where the battery goes. Motor's tiny, goes behind it normally. So you lose the weight of the engine, you gain the weight of the battery. In terms of weight, they're marginally heavier, I'd say. Mine's 260 kilo, but it's a beefy bike. So
you've got
it's not a little thing. But it's no harder to ride. It's not a problem. In all honesty, it's really not a problem to ride it.
Right. No, it does. And if anything, the weight's more low in some cases as well.
Yeah.
Ken Dando, if you commute on a bike, then going electric makes a lot of sense. I agree, especially about 1p per mile charging at home on a cheap rate. Ease of use, excellent performance, and not upsetting the neighbours. I like that. Not upsetting the neighbours. Starting a bike, especially if you start work at, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning or something, and you start your bike and let it warm up outside. Nah, sorry, that's gone are the days of that now, I think, which is interesting.
Gone are the days of needing to warm up.
Yeah, well, just switch on, go. It's great. Quick diagnostics, and that's it.
On that subject, actually, I know I've met 3 Zero owners, actually, there were, who, so they financed their bikes solely on the petrol savings they were making. They financed their bikes because they were doing one was doing like 70, the other was doing like 80 miles commutes a day, which is quite a full-on commute.
Yeah, that's a big commute.
It is a big commute, but they basically went, well, they looked at the fuel savings of going electric, and they went, it's a no-brainer. I can buy the bike outright with just the petrol savings. So they justified it on that basis.
Absolute no-brainer. I mean, charging the bike, that was interesting for me as well, because I wanted to kind of understand how much does it actually charge, how much does it cost to fill up the bike as it's, charge it. Now, the Maving one I've got at the moment, it's got the twin battery setup. So it's 2 batteries, proper heavy duty batteries. You finish your ride, you press a button, you take the batteries out, take them into your home, pop them in the little dock, if you like. Now, I've got a smart meter at home, so I was able to actually see and work out exactly how much it costs to fill up the 2 batteries. Now, I can't tell you how long it took. I mean, I know statistically, I think it says it's about 4 hours or so to fully charge both of them. I don't know. I didn't time it. That's my mistake. That's one thing I'm going to be doing. But the smart meter went up by £1. Now, if you work that out and actually put that onto the road, £1 for 80 miles. Name another vehicle that could do that. It's crazy. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's great to be able to see that that it can do that, and it is bringing the cost, the affordability of riding down greatly by having an electric vehicle. So that's a nice little thing there.
That's even with the current energy prices as well.
Yeah, I know. That was before I got on a better rate at home as well. Yeah. So that was, in fact, that was prime in the day.
It's in the day.
Yeah, I know. John Cole, we've got a comment here.
John.
Hello, gents. Hello, John.
I know John.
Well, you know John.
I know John. Yeah. Hi, John.
John Cole says, hello, gents. John Cole here. I can see that, John. So it's the same bike as yours?
Yeah. John. Now, John's a serious hardcore. He commutes on his, as you can see there.
Yeah.
He's over in Norfolk, and he's a serious rider of the Evo Rebelle and a Zero owner before that. So he's the guy who does all of that kind of crazy mileage. Look at that.
No way. That's impressive. And obviously, an avid EV rider, which is fantastic. And he's just followed up with a second comment: EV working out around a third of the cost of petrol. You can't say fairer than that, can you? As far as affordability and that day-to-day usage of it, it is a no-brainer, I think, in that side of things. And I think that is definitely a big plus point there for motorcycles, for electric motorcycles. Let's very quickly, I'm going to switch to, if I bring this up. So This was off Bikeshore, so Bikeshore Insurance Company. They did a couple of surveys and everything. This one caught my eye a little bit. The following has put people off buying electric motorcycles. They take longer to recharge than refueling a petrol vehicle. Well, we've already covered that, and realistically, that is coming down dramatically, which is great. But again, they're trying to compare apples to pears, I think.
Yeah.
How long does it take to fill up a petrol or diesel vehicle? Well, okay, yes, you are physically worried about it because you are standing there holding the thing and you're like, come on, top up sort of thing. Whereas with an electric vehicle, you plug it in, you walk away. You haven't, it's a completely different sort of experience. They're hard to find secondhand. Now, I'll be honest with you, I haven't actually looked for secondhand ones. Is there a secondhand market at the moment, or do you find that electric bike owners give them back to the dealership and they recycle them, or what's the sort of thing at the moment with them?
I sold my Zero DSR. So I did 22,000 miles on my DSR. It was 2017 to 20. I sold it at the beginning of last year, and I think I paid 13.5 for it. I worked out I'd saved about $4,000 in petrol, and I sold it for 9. So do the maths. I kind of more or less broke even. The bike almost paid for itself. I had 2 people wanting to buy it on the same day. It just went on Auto Trader. Funnily, it was one of those where it was quiet for like a week, no bites, and then two on the same day. One was going to get on a plane from Northern Ireland. I said, "Oh, hold your horses!
Whoa,
somebody's in there first." But yeah, there is, and they're kind of the. If you want to dip your toe in, it's obviously the best way to do it. It's a far more affordable way. I'd like to say my Zero is in really good nick, thanks to James's amazing care of it. And yeah,
oh, stop it!
Winter protection. I had all of your winter protection stuff on it, and kept the ACF 50 in good nick, so it was all tip top when I sold it on. It was in good, It was in good condition.
Actually, that's a good one to come to. Maintenance side of things of electric bikes is far less involved than traditional, petrol motorbikes. I mean, there is one moving part for majority of these bikes. There's one moving part, which is the motor, and so servicing and all that sort of thing is non-existent apart from your normal checks, your tire pressures, your brake pads. What else do you need to check for an electric bike?
That's you pretty much hit it. Tires, brakes, bearings. There's no oil on the Zeros. There is on the Energica. There's oil. It's coolant. It's acting as a coolant.
Right.
But that's pretty much it. There's very little else. Obviously, no exhaust or clutch cables or whatever, spark plugs. All of that's gone.
Mad, isn't it?
So your maintenance costs are much less, and there's fewer things can go wrong, causing you to break down. And we won't talk about status on my bike. Petrol bike.
We'll
point
that for a second. But yeah, no. So if you actually go on.
Sorry, I was just going to mention. Have you seen any of that YouTube guy called Mark Travels, a German fellow?
Yeah. Following him all the way. Yeah.
He's traveling the world on an electric bike.
He is. He's on a Zero SRF.
I think it's one of the early ones.
Secondhand. It's 2018. It's I rode one on one of the videos I did. It's a 2018 bike. I think he's got. Maybe 2019.
I think the only trouble he had was something to do with the motor, a bearing or something.
He did. Yeah, he did. He had an issue with it, didn't he? Yeah, it was a motor bearing. He was.
Martin, thanks for joining in, matey. I'll see you soon, Martin. He's heading off now, so I'll just sorry to put that there.
Yeah. No, you're right. He was. That was in Ireland, I think, wasn't it? He had an issue with it. He came over to the UK and Ireland first, and then he's in Iran at the moment, or he's.
Yes, I watched his last video about an hour or so ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you're researching, were you? Researching into electric.
It's quite a good series.
I mean, I don't so a lot of watch his blogs. I'm not an avid subscriber with watching stuff, but every now and again I'll go on there and I'll follow. How he's traveling around, and the experiences he's got with with charging it up, and also like maintenance.
It's pretty,
he's ridden it from Berlin.
Has he?
From Berlin to Iran so far. He's going to New Zealand. That's the plan.
Bloody hell!
So
that's good going, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a few. He set off at Christmas, and he's not in a hurry again. He's trying to. He went to Africa as well, so he dips into Africa, and they've been. He was initially doing it with his New Zealand girlfriend, but they've gone their separate ways, should we say?
She was obviously a petrol head. You know,
she was driving a Jimny. So he's now he had a backup vehicle effectively in that, and a tent on the roof, and now he is totally on his own with his electric bike.
Fair play to him. That's a hell of a thing to do. John's just put a comment in there saying headstock bearing chain tension is adjusted more often, but I mean chain tension, I suppose, because the torque of it is more than a traditional petrol engine, it's naturally going to stretch more. But you know, that's a minor inconvenience, I suppose, more than anything.
Yeah, the more you enjoy it, the more you'll be adjusting it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at these figures here, and what people are saying is putting them off electric vehicles, a lot of them are either past issues which are now being resolved with the latest technology, or things that once they actually get to ride it and enjoy it, you know, I don't think there'll be. I mean, we mentioned there about the sound of a petrol engine. Again, once you we've lost him. Your signal must have gone. He'll be back on if he wants to. Lack of confidence when it comes to maintaining. There is no real maintenance involved in it. It's he's back. He's back. There we go. We lost you then.
It just went down on me.
We thought we upset you. We thought he's petrol. That's fine. So yeah, now what I'd love to be able to do is just go through a couple of a selection of some of the electric bikes which are out there at the moment. They're all accessible to buy, and then we can actually show, and let's discuss, let's have a look and see, do they look good? Do they, have you had any experience with them, John? If you have done, and what our thoughts are. So the first one we'll come to is going to be BMW. Now this was a big surprise to me. I'm surprised that they have latched on to the electric side of things in the way that they have. I thought they'd go down more of the sporty sort of route like Ducati have, but they came out with a couple of these scooter style bikes, this one being the CE04. What do you think of it? I think it's quite RoboCop meets I don't know, a scooter. Judge Dredd. Yeah, it's a Dreadmobile. There you go.
Not for me, but
no, it's certainly interesting.
Somebody will love it. Yeah.
So I think pretty much BMW are aiming there is for the commuter market, not necessarily the sports market, because that's still going to be quite small, but it's the commuter market.
Yeah. No, definitely, and that's, it looks comfortable. I mean, I did a tour in Germany. We went down the Black Forest and everything, and I was in the middle of enjoying the B500, which is, if you haven't done it, anyone, you need to go and experience it. It's a phenomenal road. Anyway, we stopped halfway on this road, and this little thing pulled up. And we were like, what the hell's that? And it was traveling. I'll tell you, this thing was going quick, and it pulled up next to us, and he was having a chat in broken English and everything. And we'd chosen to stop on this bend because it was a beautiful sweeping bend, and we were doing drive-by, so filming each other going past. Hey, it's great. And he was laughing and joking and loving it. And then he did a couple of goes up and down, and it was quick. I'll be honest with you, it was very quick the silent jet engine noise went past. It was great. Turns out he was a police cop off duty, enjoying the German roads. It was fantastic, but that was my first time I saw one in the real world, and that was my first I looked at it and went, that's actually quite interesting, and it was an interesting concept. He had everything good to say about it. The range was great and everything, but I don't know, looks wise, I personally, no, not for me, that one. But it was a nice introduction, especially from BMW. It's got the fancy screen and stuff as well. What do we think of the Harley Davidson version? So this is the Livewire 1, I think it's called, or just the Livewire. John, have you rode one of these?
I haven't ridden one of those. No, I've seen one. I've talked to an owner. It's not one that floats my boat, and spec wise it didn't float my boat either. It's very expensive, and
yes,
it's quite slow at AC charging as well. It's 2 kilowatt maximum AC charging.
Is it?
Which is a kilowatt less. It's not massively less than the Energica, to be fair, but it's quite a bit more of a cost. It's not my sort of bike, so it'd be a fairer question for somebody who likes that look. The one thing I would say is that the long way up thing was just ridiculous. Don't even get me
wondering there. Yeah,
I was going to say I've done a video on all that where I ranted about it. They should have taken the Zero DS. They should have taken the bike I had because they had an AC charging network, and they took that, which is great for DC charging, and they couldn't. They would charge it. It took them 6 hours to charge sometimes. I was like, you numpties.
I think that was a case of Harley Davidson throwing some money at them and saying, "Promote our bike."
It was exactly that.
I don't think it brought it out in its best light. If I'm being honest with you,
it didn't. It really didn't. And they stopped and they did 6 hours. I've turned to my wife and said, "Emma, that'd take me 90 minutes. At that exact charge point, I'd be gone in 90 minutes from empty to full."
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
John's just popped up. Loves the Livewire. Ridden it many times. Not as good as the Energica, but a well-engineered machine and a joy to ride. If I could afford both, I would. That's interesting.
We'll catch up, John, at the EV festival next year, and I'll have to have a chat with you about that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. See if you can change his mind on it. Robbie, what do you think of the look of it? Is it a bit of you?
It's a bit of a mixed bag for me. I actually rode one, but not properly. It was on the Harley Davidson one. Had it on the simulator. Had a simulator.
Oh, on the mini rolling road when you just and it winds itself up, doesn't it?
Just, yeah.
You don't sound impressed.
No, not really. I mean, looks wise, obviously looks better than the last one. But
30 grand.
It's a bit of a Marmite thing.
30 grand. Ouch.
I know.
Is that what it is? I didn't know the
price. I've got some prices which I'll show in a second, but yeah, £30,000. I think again you're paying for Harley's own investment. You're kind of almost paying them back for their investment and their research. And it was a good attempt. It was nice to see that a big brand was biting the cherry of electric and everything, but I think they maybe missed a trick with that, and they've gone for what they see as being looks rather than actual performance and user friendliness and all that sort of thing.
I believe Livewire spun off now from the Harley.
Yes, I think they are their own entity. I think, which could be Harley going, yeah, we've had enough of that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So may change. This one is one of the more the ones you'll see. Yeah, I think you see a lot more of these on the road at the moment. They are the budget electric motorcycle. The first one was called the TC. That's the TC Max, the one you see there. The TC was the first one which did 28 mile an hour as a top speed. This one now does, I think it's 48 or 50 or something like that. So it's now made it more accessible, more usable, more open to people who've got the full CBTs, who want to be able to do bypasses and that sort of thing as well. So, having that speed is great. But it is one of the cheapest ones on the market. I think it's like less than £4,000, which is, for a motorbike or for a vehicle of any sort, especially one that does look quite nice like that. I think that's quite good. Well, I mean, is that more your sort of style, John?
Yeah, that would be more for me. I think I know an owner of one of those, or a former owner. He's now got a Zero as well, but he loved the Super Soco. He loved it. He thought it was a really nice bike. Perfect commuter, like you say. Yeah, definitely more my style.
That's right. And Robbie, I can see you on that, mate. I can see you're rocking up with your shades and your lumberjack Kevlar shirt on. I can see you on that.
Oh yes, definitely. I probably like the look of that better than the Harley, but I'm really surprised at the price at $4,000. I mean, because if you look at those bicycle stroke motorbike things, whatever you want to call them, the Surons, you could pay $6,500 for them.
And I don't think they're as easy to ride as these. I think the Surons are. Technology on it is great. The power on it, power to weight ratio, phenomenal. But I think they're dangerous because you twist the throttle on a Suron, you'll backflip it. Whereas on one of these, they're designed to be user friendly and a joy to ride. And I think that's
there's a bit more weight to it, isn't it? Obviously, the Suron is basically it's like a mountain bike with an electric motor on it.
No, exactly. Obviously, I suppose because it's got to have your tax and insurance and a number plate. I'm guessing there's regulations that make you do that sort of thing. But yeah, so that is definitely a very nice sort of star bike. This is one of the Energy. How do you pronounce it? I can't do it right.
Energica. Stress on the second syllable. Energica.
Believe me, I'm stressing every time I try and say the bloody words.
But the guys at Energica UK say Energica. Everyone says Energica. Look,
that's the way I'd say it.
Everybody says Karcher instead of Kersha power washers. So who cares?
Yeah, no, true.
Even they do on their adverts.
So this is the same brand as the one you've got at the moment, John, but this is the street bike version of it. It's the same motor and stuff as yours, I believe, isn't it? It's just in the street chassis.
It is. I haven't got the specs to hand right away. I think it's interestingly, I did a ride with a couple of owners of SA9s last year, and their range was slightly less than mine. Now,
okay.
Without finding the specs, I haven't gotten to hand. I'm not sure what that was. I don't think the battery's any. Whether it was a slightly less aerodynamic aspect, I'm not sure, but they were getting slightly less range than I was. We noticed.
That's interesting.
But it's a great bike. People love it. It's the most sit up one apart from the Xperia.
Yes, that's their brand new one, isn't it?
It's the most. That's probably the most comfortable to ride. The most sit up.
Interesting. I've just looked, and that's got a chain. I thought all electric bikes, they're all chains. I thought electric bikes were belt or in the other case, they have the motor on the back wheel, but
zero a belt. Energica are all chain. They need to. It would just shred a belt.
Because of the power delivery.
It wouldn't stand a chance. Yeah.
Interesting. John, TC Max is a cheeky ride. He's really rode them all, hasn't he?
He has.
A cheeky ride and a fun commute vehicle.
Can we get John on? John, can you
join
us?
If you want to, mate, I can send you a link. You can join in. Or if you've got John already, if you've got John's details, you can send him the link I sent you earlier. He's more than welcome to join us. That'd be great to have another person on involved. If you can, you're welcome to join us. So the next bike we're going to talk about is, look at that thing. This is the Silence. Now, Silence is a brand I've only recently discovered. They are trying to make big waves in the UK at the moment, and they were initially, I believe, for the delivery industry. So for Just Eat and all that sort of thing. And I love what they're trying to do. This is actually off their website. They're trying to make this look as sporty as possible, and I really quite like what they've done there. This is obviously they're trying to appeal to that younger market and a younger audience as well. Very much designed as a commuter, a scooter sort of style bike. What do you reckon to that front end? That's quite interesting, isn't it? The silence says it all.
It looks like
studying it.
Looks like it's a mobile speaker. That thing on the side looks like an old speaker.
It does. I think so. The other side of the bike from that one, the square unit basically is the battery that slides in and out from the other side. And it's got the handle as well. So it's got little wheels on it. You disconnect the battery, you just slide it out, and then it becomes a handle, and then you just wheel it away. That is one of the nice little features. Say again, matey.
Sorry, I said it looks like the battery's got a subwoofer connected to it.
It does, doesn't it?
I reckon it does under the seat or something. It's
maybe it has. Maybe it's for the noise.
There you go. Yes, SA9 is slightly different on range because of the aerodynamics.
That makes sense, John. Yeah.
Right, next one to have a look at. Look at that. So this is one of the Zero bikes. There's quite a fleet of Zero bikes now. This is not the one you had, was it? This is the SR.
That's the SRF.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's an SRF and an SRS, which are the same fundamental bike. The SRS is just a bit more fared. The foot pegs are slightly lower. It's a bit. So that one was the first launch of their new bike range, if you like. I think it's 2018 that came out, and that's the one the German guy Mark that Robbie mentioned is riding. He's riding a red one of those. I had the great fortune of riding one of the first in the country. Turned up at Street Bike just before COVID hit us all.
Wow!
And it was a great bike. I really enjoyed it. But in all honesty, for me it didn't offer a significantly higher range from the Zero I already had, which was really the main reason I didn't go for it in the end. I was quite interested in it, but it wasn't significantly better in terms of range because it's a heavier bike, bigger battery, but a heavier bike. But that's more of the DSR I had is quite a thin. It's a dual sport bike, a bit taller, and that's obviously a bit more of a substantial road bike, basically.
So a bigger battery, was it also designed to be quicker, better acceleration, better top speed as well? Or?
Yeah, the spec was roundabout better. Yeah, it was. bigger battery, faster charging by default. Came on board with it. I think that was 3 kilowatt originally on board charging, and contrasted with mine, which was 1.3. So
bit of a difference then.
Well, yeah, and the battery's bigger, like I say, but having taken it out for a day, it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't significantly. It wasn't worth trading in, should we say?
Not worth a jump, if you like. Yeah. It looks wise, I think gorgeous.
It looks great. It looks beautiful. I agree.
Out of the ones so far, I'd go for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've been quite arty in the style of that one, and I quite. Oh God, we've got a comment from Nigel. He's just come back from the beach again, I think, and he's just popped up again. So none of these seem to be fared. Is that because you can't go out long enough to get wet? Oh, for God's sake!
The SRS is fared, so the fared version of that.
I mean, we're going to come on to some other bikes which are fared in a second. The next one I'm going to show you is the Maving, which obviously we've got at the moment. But just to quickly go on that point, electric bikes, they are waterproof still, aren't they? I mean, you're not going to go drive it into a lake, obviously, but if it rains, there's no real trouble. Is that right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So there were some issues with early Zeros. In fact, mine, the one I had, they were notorious for having issues. They put the onboard charger in the belly pan, which is not brilliant design, really, and it was kind of an off-the-shelf. They were a little bit. I think they bought a shed load of chargers, and when I say charger, it was like a box, yay big, like a and it would sit in the belly pan, and it was supposedly waterproof. But
this is because I remember you saying about the charger and the because obviously I've cleaned your Zero bike before, and you showed me this at the very front of the belly pan. Is that what you're talking about? That bit there?
Yeah, it was right. It was sat in the belly pan, and you could. Yeah, I did. I remember talking.
Yeah.
You could actually see the back, where the sockets.
The
sockets are on the back of the charger. You could see from behind the belly pan. So you don't want to be spraying it's not fully IP rated waterproof. So they did have issues with them initially, and they were replacing a lot of them to the point where they.
What sort of issues? Out of interest, I mean, is this a case that they would stop working, or I mean, it wouldn't electrocute the rider for God's sake?
No,
and things like that.
No, it just stopped. It stopped. It would stop charging the bike. So you're a bit stuffed then, unless you've got an external charger. So they were replacing a lot of them, and they went to a new supplier ultimately. So the last I went through 2 of them, and then the third replacement was the new supplier, and it was fine after that. So they had waterproofing issues with Zero. As far as the rest of it goes, if I was going to ride through water, I'd rather be doing it in an EV than a fuel vehicle. You can
really,
they're better. They're generally better waterproof.
I suppose there's no need for air intakes into the engine.
Correct.
So and it's majority of it's either liquid or air cooled anyway, external air cooling. So that's interesting.
There's footage of people driving cars through ridiculous Fords and things, and I know people who've done it as well. Yeah, you got all this footage. I can't remember where that place is where people keep going through a Ford.
Is it Rufford? Is it Rufford or something like that?
It's the one where you get they kind of go in, and then they just you can see the cut out, and then it just kind of floats.
It floats. Yeah.
It's just dead in the water.
But there's one of them.
You can just see the hydrolock. As soon as it goes through there, the water sprays over the bonnet. Boom, hydrolock.
But you can go through that in an electric car. I wouldn't want to do it on a bike. In all honesty,
no.
but that'd be other concerns there. I was like,
there's
what's under that.
Right, now, Nigel mentioned about there doesn't seem to be any bikes that are fared. Nigel, I've got one for you here. This is a bit of a anomaly, or certainly was an anomaly, where this brand called Damon have created a motorcycle that was the first trifecta of 200s. So they've created a bike that is claimed, and it's not been proven yet, but it's claimed 200-mile range, 200-mile-an-hour speed, and 200 horsepower equivalent. This is the bike. Now look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. I think that looks so futuristic, and it just works. This the amount of technology in this particular motorbike is phenomenal. Now, not just talking about wheelie control and traction control and all that sort of thing. This brand, and I highly recommend anyone that's watching this back on replay, look at Damon Motorcycles and look at technology. It's got so much technology involved in rider safety. So it's got onboard camera system, which is continuously monitoring all the way around you. It's got like a 360-degree monitoring system, and it's also continuously monitoring the way that cars move and pull out, and other motorcycles and other people. It can apply brakes. It can give you warnings. It can give you haptic feedback through the handlebars as well to say, watch out behind you, in front of you, left, right, whatever. So that is phenomenal. It's also got something which I think is incredible, the way that the bike can change its style and its rider position at the touch of a button. So you ride along the road and you're in sports mode, you're hunched over, blah, 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 and you think, okay, I've just come out the country roads now, I'm now in the town, I want to change my riding style. You press a button and it lifts the handlebars up. So, of course, that changes the position and drops the foot pegs down. That is incredible. Absolutely amazing how they've done that, and it is all included in the technology of the bike. The fact it can also do 200 mile an hour at a range of claimed, and I say claimed because it hasn't been proven yet, the 200 miles, I think is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
It looks awesome.
What do you reckon? It does, doesn't it? John, yeah, I think we've discussed this briefly before as well. What do you think? What's your thoughts on it?
It looks great. I don't believe the figures, but I never do. I don't trust figures. I never trust figures, especially... I mean, I don't trust them with petrol or diesel cars, and I don't trust them with EVs.
No. Is that Millie? Millie the Beagle.
Millie.
Hello, Millie.
But nevertheless, it's a lovely looking bike.
Yeah.
No,
it really is. Robbie, would you own one?
It depends on the price.
I've got some figures.
I think that's going to be.
I think
Nigel's first comment.
We need to sit down on this one.
John says, while you're looking at Damon Motorcycles, try and find someone else. There isn't at the moment. They've taken pre-orders because they are very, very strict on making sure it's absolutely completely ready. There's not going to be a case of we release it and then they'll do revisions and upgrades and recalls. They want it to be absolutely bang on. Safety is the biggest thing with this company, which is incredible. The owner of Damon Motorcycles actually came from snowboarding. He had a motorcycle accident because someone pulled out on him, and then that's kind of made him go, I want to create something that's safe. And I love the background of that. So, unfortunately, there's no one that owns it yet. Sorry, go on.
I think John's coming from we get a bit cynical, EV bike people, I think, because we've heard a lot of this kind of vaporware type stuff before. And I'm not saying that's the case here, but and the one that sticks in probably John's mind as well is the Lightning Fiasco. Which was a beautiful bike. And like I said, I mentioned it earlier. There's video of somebody riding it. There's video of a couple of people riding it. Looked a great bit of kit, but for whatever reason, whether it was I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me into trouble. But
careful.
it didn't. It doesn't appear to be readily available, should we say?
Yes.
Despite people putting money down for it.
Right, so I created this little table. Now, this is based on the ones we've already seen, the bikes we've seen the photos of there, and that just gives you a brief idea. Now, obviously, I highlighted a few things to say green's good, orange not so good, red okay, a little bit out there, and then pink is just out of this world. Someone asked how much the Damon was. At the moment, you can get one in UK money, £32,670. That is a hell of a lot of money.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
£32,670 for the Damon. That is a lot of money. Now, again, what I've also tried to research a bit into is the figures and the facts and everything there for you. When you look at the price of that and then you look at what you're getting for it, I think I can see where they're coming from. It's certainly one of the lightest bikes as far as power to weight ratios out there. The motors in it's 150 kilowatt motor as opposed to the Energica, which has got an 80 kilowatt one. The Harley Davidson Livewire's got 75 kilowatt, so it's certainly got a lot of power behind it. So the figures, I mean, 200 mile an hour, 200 mile range, I don't know. I'm not going to know until I see it, but what they're quoting on their website certainly seems like they're hoping to get those sort of figures.
I must say, 32 grand, I think is not too badly priced.
No, I was going to say that.
Look at some of the rare, the rare big players in the motorcycle world. You can pay 35, 40 even more than that for a bike. So 32 grand with that kind of technology on there, it's still a lot of money, but I don't think that's too bad.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah. I was looking at I noticed you got Harley at 22,990 there, which is quite interesting because it was 30. So they've knocked a massive whack off that now. Seemingly.
That is the Livewire. I don't know about the Livewire 1, or certainly when they split.
Okay.
So this was off. This may be a little bit out of date, but I know that this was based on when it was Harley Davidson. But yeah, no, the prices. I mean, when people look at electric vehicles, certainly when they first come out, I mean, people were expecting to pay, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 grand or something stupid for anything electric, just because it was all new technology. But no, it's interesting to see your reaction there to the price of the Damon. I was thinking it was expensive, but you're absolutely right. When you do compare it to, let's say, the Ducati Panigale or things like that, that sort of league. Okay, that is good, and the technology you get on it is phenomenal. It works.
Well, that's another thing. I was expecting you to quote the high 50s, early 60s for that.
Me too.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
I was thinking it was going to be double that.
That's interesting. Okay. Well, let's all buy one. We'll get a discount for 3, so that'll be good. But then, of course, we don't want to take anything away from the entry level bikes or the commuter level bikes. There, I mean, you've got the TC 2,800 quid, £5,000 for the dual battery TC Max, the dual battery Maving R1S, which has just been released next month, 7,495. Are they still doing that grant scheme when you get an extra 500 quid off an EV vehicle?
Pass at the moment. They've stopped it.
They've stopped it.
They've stopped it again. But I think what's generally happened with that is it's been a bit of a con, because the manufacturers have just gone, we'll have the extra grand, and they put the prices up. And unsurprisingly, when the government grant goes away, they drop the prices a grand. That's been what I've seen. So thanks, taxpayer.
Yeah. John's very rightly said, plenty of petrol bikes over the £30,000 mark. Energica Livewire 1 0 below this, and you can buy one today. Are they readily available? If you walked into a showroom you want to get your bike that you've got at the moment, John, could you go and say, right, I want one today, and there'll be one ready, or have you got to order it?
You can. It depends. They don't. No, they actually usually build them to order. The Energica, the one I've got is built to order. So
what is the lead time roughly?
The lead time is supposed to be a couple of months. I waited about 4, but I hit them at an unfortunate time where they were moving workshops. They were expanding, so all they could do was apologize constantly and say, "We're sorry." I know the guys at English Electric were quite embarrassed about it all, but it ultimately didn't matter. It just meant waiting a bit long.
I think it's quite understandable, really. They're not huge companies, so just to have bikes lying around at dealerships and that is just sort of like dead money for them.
Well, Zero do actually. Zero do produce them, and they don't always have sales. So
is that for fleet bikes? Is that like they produce a lot of them to say, right, ride it? They want bums on the seats. They want people to test them.
They want them in showrooms. They want them around at dealers, and that is how Zero work. So depending on time of year, you can get some good bargains, I think, depending and as John's just put, it will depend on the dealer as well.
Yeah.
Some dealers have changed as well. I think, in fact, I'm sure that Street Bike in Halesowen no longer sells Zero. I think it's gone down the road. I think the main guy there, Jason, who did them, has moved to a different place, and they've gone with him effectively.
Interesting.
But the Energica ones are because they're a bit more. There's a little bit more meat on them, and I think they are very well built. They are custom built. They want to make sure they're right, and you could see it you could see the difference as soon as you compare them, A/B them. You see, that's why I'm paying a few grand more. Saying that, as John's rightly said there, if you I rode the Zero DSRX last October on a off-road thing in Belgium.
Interesting.
And it was a day's off-road riding, and that bike was a really nice bike, the DSRX. But by the time you've loaded it up with what I would consider to be things I'd want, you were nudging 30 grand then. At which point I'm looking at it and going, well, would I rather have, again, come back to the charging speed? With a Zero, you're looking at about twice the charging time you are with an Energica. So it's their reluctance to take on board DC charging.
That was going to be a question actually I was going to ask, because Zero, like the one, because I'm not too clued up on electric bikes, but I was going to ask, obviously that one that Mark uses, the German fella, it's AC only.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So which particular one is Zero sticking to AC?
There are rumours that they're moving to DC, but I'm not so sure. I keep hearing mixed things about that. John may know more. I don't. Their justification was, they said we don't really think the bikers need it, because they don't typically. It's kind of a rare thing that they'll need to do more range. They looked at what people do on average, which we talked about it earlier, James. If you look at the national travel stats, most people do. It's 95% of people do under 50 miles a day. That's all in. So it's kind of the outline journeys where you're doing more than that. And I think Zero just looked at those kind of stats and went, the bikers don't do silly journeys. And if they do, okay, they've got to wait a bit longer. So what? It's I think they also had issues with availability of DC. The DC network in the US wasn't quite as up to spec wasn't as widely available as it was over here and in mainland Europe. So that was another factor. And the AC points are a lot cheaper to install and much cheaper.
Hang on. There we go. Zero sticking with AC because of the battery chemistry and charging capability in America. There you go.
That's it.
John, you're clued up, buddy. Oh, I'm impressed.
Yeah, the battery chemistry, they can't. You can't just stick an AC, just change it simply. There's a bit more involved.
Yeah.
Right. I would like to discuss something, because I'm conscious of the time. I know it's ticking on. I could talk about this all night because I generally find it fascinating. But the next topic I want to come on to, Robbie, you may actually have a bit more insight into this. So we've talked about petrol. We've talked about electric. I'm going to talk about this. Now, for anyone that doesn't know what that is Kawasaki's latest version of their technology. So this is from the same people that have created the incredible ZH2 and the H2SX and the supercharged motorbike, but they had a completely different brief of what to design. Instead of going for power, they wanted something that's going to basically, work well. So this is a hybrid engine. It's got a 4.5 litre petrol engine. 4.5 litre, 450cc. Bloody hell, can you imagine? 450cc petrol engine with an electric motor on the side of it. Now, when you combine that with the rest of the bike, I tell you what, that looks all right. That I quite like the look of that. What's your initial thoughts? Actually, Robbie, I'm going to come to you first of all, mate. What's your initial thoughts on hybrid technology motorbikes?
I did. I think Kawasaki had this on their, was it the stand last year?
Yes,
or was it their hydrogen one they had on the stand?
They're both, actually. They had both.
Yeah. I'm sort of limited on knowledge for bike-wise. Car-wise, I know hybrids. Car-wise. Bike-wise, I really don't know. Is it going to be one of those? Is it sort of like an MHEV? So you've got a couple of different hybrids. You've got an MHEV, which is a mild hybrid electric vehicle, which is self-charging. It usually runs on a 48-volt battery, I believe. And then you've got hybrids, which then are a plug-in. So where's this going to sit in? Is it a plug-in or is it just going to be a self-charging?
This is a bit of everything. So it is a 48-volt battery under the seat. It is a 450cc bike engine. It will self-charge and regenerate off the petrol engine as well in eco mode, as well as regenerative engine and all that sort of thing. You can run it just on electric, just on petrol, or the hybrid together. It's interesting. It's complete curveball. Because everyone's like, we're getting rid of this. And just before they get rid of petrol engines, they go, well, hang on, here's a bit of both. And it's an interesting curveball they've kind of thrown in there. John, what do you think? What's your thoughts?
I've said what I think about hybrids.
Yeah.
Get off the fence.
Yeah. I mean, do you not see that it's it is the best of both? Do you reckon, or is it not?
I think it's the worst of both because you're dragging around extra stuff. If you're powering it from electric, you're dragging around an engine needlessly. If you're powering it from petrol, you're dragging around all the electric gubbins needlessly. That's certainly how I feel about cars.
The way I could see about this is the range. A lot of people have mentioned about full electric bikes is the range. Obviously, you can go a lot further on this, and the same with hybrid cars. Certain hybrid cars that I've driven are self-charge as well. You can put it into a save mode.
Yes.
So you just load it on the engine, and then you can flick it back over onto the electric and the petrol.
So my question there would be, pretty much coming back to what John just said. Yes, the range is improved, but is it realistically improved? Because, like you say, you've got this electric engine, this electric motor, and everything there, and then you've got this extra weight, this extra petrol, and everything taking up more space. Where, in theory, you could just put another battery in, or you could have a bigger engine, or a bigger fuel tank, or whatever it is. So, are you literally getting two? Bits of technology. I shouldn't do that on camera, should I? That's quite interesting what I'm doing there. You've got sorry, you've got a electric engine, electric motor, something that's working extremely well in all the electric industry, EV motorcycle. Then you've got the petrol, which is also working extremely well, and you're effectively going, right, I'm going to cut them both in half. So you're halving the efficiency, halving the performance, halving the capacity, and then put them together. And the only positive I can see at the moment is that it's self-charging the electric side of things. So maybe if you are taking it easy and letting it work off itself, then great, you may be able to get more range. But certainly on a performance basis, I can't see this being the way to go. I may be completely wrong. Again, it's new technology. They've only recently released it, but I don't know. I can't see this being the way to go.
Any EV owners watching this back, by the way, are going to wince every time you say self-charging. Just so you know.
No,
it's just a phrase people hate. It's like,
is it?
It's magic.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
No. I'm not. I'm only pulling your leg. It's but it is the whole self-charging thing. They're like, well, what's it? You invented the perpetual motion machine or something.
Yeah, it's there.
I guess sort of the hybrid range is aimed maybe at the emissions thing. So you're going around town, sort of built up areas, you're using electric, you go and hit the motorways, and you're going to use combustion. Because that's pretty much.
I'm not going to give a fair answer, and neither is John looking at this.
Yeah, no, John's just come up with it. Hybrid is a waste of time. Don't hold back, John, for God's sake. It's for people who are afraid to make the switch and more expensive. Furthermore, the battery will require replacing faster because riders will use the battery more. I mean, yeah, I don't know again until it's been used, and it's not just used as a test ride. It's been used and put through its paces in a long term ride and that sort of thing. I think that's the only time we'll be interested. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks great. The idea that they're trying to implement new technology and trying to have this new, I like that they're doing it, but
credit
the
where
fact that they're putting this, I don't know.
Credit where it's
I think it's ticking boxes.
They're pushing the tech, and like you say, they're probably trying to make sure they can get a few people in who are worried. Let's face it, people are worried about making the jump to electric. That's a real thing, and I know I've met enough people who've gone hybrid. They have. I have to say, most of them have said, "I wish I'd gone full electric." It was just I wasn't really certain, and then there's quite a few who said that. But if that's the toe in the door they need, fine. It's not for me, but I'm sure it is for lots of people.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, the only other one to kind of touch on, and I will only touch on it because I know that what John's going to say. The other technology that people are mentioning, the other technology that people are saying is the future, and it's so controversial because so many people have gone almost completely against electric and petrol, and they've gone this way. Hydrogen, okay, and the idea between a hydrogen-powered vehicle. Now, Robbie, what do you know about hydrogen-powered bikes? Because I'll be honest with you, I heard about it a couple of weeks ago. No, I've heard about it before, but then people have started mentioning it, saying it's the most efficient way, it's the most the cheapest way, it's the most cleanest way of riding. What do you know about it?
Very little, to be honest, apart from when I was on the Kawasaki stand last year, and I was chatting to the guys there about because I was surprised that I turned up, saw it, and was quite surprised that even a bike manufacturer, because a lot of car manufacturers aren't really hitting that area yet, and yet here's a bike manufacturer, going into it. I know certain big car manufacturers are, dabbling in the hydrogen world, but bike-wise, I know very little.
They've just closed down. They've recently closed down hydrogen filling stations around Heathrow, I think it is.
You're saying that with a grin. You're quite smug about that, aren't you?
Do you know what? I've had this discussion with so many people. I said, well, buy one then. Just buy a hydrogen car. Good luck.
Wow.
Where are you going to fill it?
See, what is the idea? So it's got to be, like electric is electric filling station, petrol is petrol. So you've got to have a hydrogen specific filling station, and it's gas, isn't it? You put the gas into the
it's
tank.
Liquid. It's highly compressed, and then it's got to be very, very highly compressed when it's fed into the vehicle.
Now, I'm no scientist, right? But that just sounds like a bomb, right?
Well, the Norwegian one that blew up is kind of a hint. Yeah. When a hydrogen thing goes pop, it goes pop big time. As we know from history. Yeah. But the problem with hydrogen is, and again, okay, Elon Musk, you could look and go, okay, well, he would say that, but there's a really good chat. There's a really good discussion with him talking about hydrogen. And let's face it, the guy does space rockets as well. So if hydrogen were a sensible option, he'd have gone hydrogen in the first place.
Yeah.
He's not afraid of using.
No, he's got technology. That. He's got the research to his disposal. He's got the science behind him as well. So,
but the reality is, it causes metal fatigue. It burns with a colorless flame. You can't see it. And when it goes pop, like I say, it goes off big time. On a bike, it terrifies me. I mean, the amount of engineering to put it in a car has got to be quite fierce. I think you lose quite a bit of space in a car just because of all the safety stuff you got to put around, to protect hydrogen cars. But I mean, in terms of practicalities, in terms of EVs, you can fill them at home while you're asleep.
Yeah.
The appeal, I get the appeal of hydrogen because it's the same model as petrol and diesel, and it's the way people are used to doing things. You go somewhere, you fill it up. When you own an electric vehicle, you suddenly realize that going somewhere to fill up is quite a hassle. And when you don't do it anymore, when you just get home and how long does it take to charge? Well, actually, it takes me about 30 seconds because I get out, plug it in, and as you know, you've been doing it.
Yeah,
James.
It's great.
I don't sit around or wait around while it's doing it. I just sleep normally, and that whole going somewhere specifically to fill up goes out the window.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the other thing about hydrogen, and I know you got that infographic as well. In terms of efficiency, it's nothing as efficient as. There you go. It's good. It's a very good infographic. So it's comparative.
I like that.
Efficiencies of each method, and you can see there. If you start with 100% renewable electricity for all three, you can see the inherent losses as you go down through each phase. So if you're making hydrogen, the cleanest way of doing it is you take electricity and you're going to split water. Yeah, you're going to dump the oxygen and keep the hydrogen. Then you've got to compress it. Then you've got to transport it. Then you've got to do all of those steps below. You've got to do H2 to electricity conversion, inversion, DC, AC, energy. So you end up with 22% efficiency starting with 100 compared to an EV. Instead of putting all that power into splitting water molecules and then turning it back into electricity, because a hydrogen vehicle is ultimately an electric vehicle. It still uses a battery at the end, and all you're doing is you're just putting a load of waste in the middle. But people have it as a mental thing where they need a replacement method of working with a vehicle that is equivalent to a current petrol. And I'd say the easiest way to stop that is to borrow an electric car or an electric motorbike.
Get your hands on it. Oh, interesting. Nigel, I don't think you're doing justice to hydrogen. I mean, listen, this is an open discussion, and I am more than happy to discuss this. If you've got any comments or facts that we can share with the group, please, because this is what I want to do. I wanted to be able to discuss it and open people's minds and eyes to it, because it is new technology. It's not here yet. It's certainly moving in a different direction. Which way we go, we don't know. Hang on. You can burn hydrogen rather than convert it into electricity.
Oh, if you use it combust, yeah. If you're going down a combustion model, but then that's even less efficient. So
that goes back to like the power to liquid one there, the energy loss, because then you're losing energy in heat, light, and all that sort of stuff, aren't you?
I mean, conventionally, what people say is hydrogen is probably a potentially good way of powering large vehicles, so ships, trains, lorries potentially. Now they've shied away more recently from lorries and trains. Germany's dropped a hydrogen train system it was running.
I think JCB have changed over to hydrogen vehicles. JCB.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think there's a really good talk done to the hydrogen conference last year. I can't remember the guy's name who did a talk on it really, but the guy stands at the front and says why hydrogen isn't suitable, and he's backing it all up and saying the one place it really does work actually is what you just touched on in plant. In certain places it could be potentially quite useful where you've got to get fuel in, where you've got no power infrastructure. It could be a useful way of doing that. In Orkney, actually, Orkney's doing some interesting stuff with hydrogen. Because Orkney produces more renewable electricity than they can use.
Yep.
So they've got to do something with that. You can either stick it in a battery, charge batteries up. If you haven't got batteries, the other thing you can do is, and it's not as efficient as sticking it in a battery, but you can do exactly what's on this chart here. You can take water, split it, and you could store the energy in hydrogen. It's not a fuel source. It's a means of storing it. That's the way to look at it. And on the back of that, they are looking at ultimately powering ships based from hydrogen in that respect, because ships burn the filthiest oil possible. It's all like the gunk. The worst possible, filthiest oil is what they're using. So if they can, and I think I can't remember what percentage of air emissions are shipping, but it's massive. I wish you'd get on this call, John.
Honestly, he cracks me up. It's brilliant. It'd be interesting to see, because obviously John's got quite a bit of knowledge about EV and hydrogen, that sort of thing. And then Nigel, who, to be fair to Nigel, he's in the electric industry anyway.
Yeah.
And he's he has got quite a bit of knowledge of that. He's actually just put another comment up. You can make green hydrogen, and it's in commercial use, also much quicker refilling. So yes, that comes back to the refilling method and that sort of thing.
I've got to ask Nigel, what percentage of it is green at the moment? Because it's minuscule. It's all grey and black at the moment. It's exactly what John said. It's fossil fuel. If you're making hydrogen at the moment, it's a byproduct of fossil fuels. It's made with fossil fuels predominantly, which is why a lot of the fossil fuel companies are pushing it as a future fuel.
Interesting.
A means of powering vehicles.
Yeah.
Without getting all cynical and conspiratorial about it all, it's just
No, it's interesting, and it just shows that there's the kind of the hype and the press and what they want you to know, and then there's the behind the scenes, and this will be for any whether it be normal fossil fuels, whether it be electric, whether it be gas powered, there's always going to be behind the scenes a negative as well as a positive, a pro and a con. So it's certainly interesting. I need to do more research myself. I know I need to look at that.
But the green hydrogen is exactly what's on that chart we were just looking at. That's water. That's the greenest form of hydrogen you can take. You taking water. Your only byproduct is you're just splitting
oxygen.
A water molecule.
Yeah, that's it. It's most economical in high horsepower engines. Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense more in that because of because it's something to do with the combustion rate and that sort of thing, I believe.
If you're burning it, is he talking about? Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
Hydrogen production is worse than oil in production. Oh, there's a bit of a. I can see there's a bit of a spiciness here in the chat. Is worse than oil in production, transportation, storage. Period. Getting political now. That's that's not what we want to do. Is get political. I love a debate. Don't get me wrong. But I think that we all need to just know a little bit more about everything. I'm going to sidetrack very quickly, and then I'm going to start wrapping up because Bob Ward. I have thought this myself before, so I apologise in advance, John. I keep expecting John to do a Tim Bradbury impression of Tiny Tim. Do you know who Tim Bradbury is?
I didn't know who Tim Bradbury is, but I know who Tiny Tim is.
Yeah,
I've got a cold at the moment, so there's no chance it's going to happen.
I would love to see that coming to a YouTube channel soon. You know, John is going to do. Love it.
Perfect.
Oh, that's made my night.
Oh well, makes a change from bloody Phil Mitchell or Grant Mitchell. Which I used to get.
I don't know.
Jason Donovan when I was younger. That was even worse.
I did Jason Donovan, Jesus.
When I had hair.
Right, lads. I first of all, thank you very much. It's been this has gone a lot better than I expected. To be fair, I didn't realise how much there was talking to it. And obviously, John, thank you for coming on board and your expertise, your history, your understanding, and everything of the EV market in general, and your everything is brilliant. And thank you for that. And Robbie, thank you for joining us last minute. It was nice to have another person on board, and it's great to have someone else who is relatively new into it, and still they haven't actually test rode it yet, but still starting the potential journey of EVs in motorbikes.
I'm totally open to it. I wouldn't shut it an EV bike down. Like I said, I've got a lot of experience on the car side of things.
Yes.
So I've got an idea of what goes in, but I certainly wouldn't say no. It's not something I would look at right now. I wouldn't go and swap both my bikes for an EV one, but I've certainly got that interest there.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is, I mean, now I've rode one, I've had my eyes open massively. Would I buy that particular one? No, because I would be looking for something maybe more like what John's got at the moment, that Energica. I still can't pronounce it. That electric bike, Italian one. That's the more exciting. That
you want something with a bit more power,
a little bit more oomph to it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But what I've got at the moment, it's been enough of an eye opener. And bear in mind, it's by no means a quick bike, but it's been enough to kind of make me go, I could get into this. I could get, and you can see the benefits. But no, I think that's been great, and thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming on. We've got some people saying thank you, great stream, top job. Nigel says just off to the seaside. I love it.
Be back in 2 hours, Nigel.
Yeah, exactly. No, guys, what can I say? It's been absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate your time. And who knows, we may do another one soon. It'd be great to kind of see how it evolves again in the future.
I would just say, if for anyone who wants to ride one, give the guys at English Electric a bell in Dis. They've got all kinds of different electric bikes. They just do electric bikes. It's a bit of a trek for us in the Midlands, but it's worth it. It's not a trek for John.
Because where is the nearest electric distributor? I mean, obviously there's different brands like Mavinger in Coventry, Zero. There were Street Bike Hells out.
They're down the road. They're just down the road from Street Bike now. I understand, but yeah. I mean, I go to English Electric because they are Energica UK anyway, so they're the official UK importer dealer. They're down the road from John actually.
Brilliant. And John, I know you're watching at the moment. Thank you, John, for your involvement and your participation as well. It's been great to get you involved as well. But I think we should probably end it there. I've just seen the time. My God, we've been chatting forever. It's been great. But no, guys, thank you very much for coming on board. It's been great to have this chat, and I do want to start doing more live streams as well. And any live streams that I've got coming up, if you or anyone watching does fancy joining in, please, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, no, thank you very much. Robbie, before you go, give us a shout out. What was your channel?
That's Robbie Moto.
Robbie Moto. You can see it just there under his name. John, what was your channel?
Oh, mine's been up all the time. It's just that YouTube at JT Chivers. That'll get you there. So
fantastic, and definitely go check them out, guys. Both of them, I think they both deserve a subscribe, a like, something to say thank you, and definitely check their channels out. They've both got really good videos. John does a fantastic impression of Tiny Tim, which he's got a new video coming up next week.
Are you my dad?
Oh no!
And I've got a great video of some bearded fella washing my bike.
Oh, I wouldn't watch that one. Jesus Christ! No.
Love you.
Love that video. Right, boys. I'll let you say goodbye, and then I'll do a sign off afterwards.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone who's tuned in. Cheers, James.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Right, guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for joining in. It has been fantastic. I've actually really enjoyed tonight. I've learned a lot, and I hope you've learned a lot as well. Definitely, if you take anything away from this, open your eyes to the electric industry. It is certainly something that is going to be coming up in the future. Go and test ride one if you can. Whether you're going to Motorcycle Live this year, there's going to be some of the brands there, and you can get your hands on these electric bikes. Majority of them you can ride with a CBT, or even I think there's a couple of brands you can ride without a license, just to test ride in a safe environment as well. But go and experience it, see what you think, and I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are. But for now, guys, it's been a fantastic 2.5 hours. Thank you for tuning in, and have a nice evening. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.